Lord help me, I have never seen someone use so many words to say so little. Okay, Fox News did an interview with Kamala Harris. I commend her for doing this interview because, boy, was it bad. She had no reason to do this, but I guess she's so desperate she did. And she probably spoke for 15 seconds without saying a single thing. It was amazing. First question, how many illegal immigrants do you believe that you have detained since the beginning of your administration? I'm glad you asked about immigration, because immigration is a question that a lot of people are concerned about. And I have concerns too. So we should be talking about, excuse me, let me finish. And I'm just like, wow, poor Brett Baer, desperately trying to just be like, can you give me a number, please? That was the whole interview. It's actually pretty bad, though. At one point, she's screaming democracy. It was really bad. I have to imagine that once the betting odds catch up to this interview, it's going to be 70-30 for Trump.
Well, I just got to say, I mean, I wish he had asked her more hard-hitting questions like, is Russia a bigger country next to Ukraine, a smaller country? Because she tends to shine on those.
Indeed. So we're going to talk about that, plus a whole bunch of other things. Seamus, of course, is here.
Everybody.
He's so eager.
I had to jump in.
He had to jump in. So that we got that story. And, Donald Trump did a town hall with a bunch of women, and the media's angry. They're like, well, how come all the women supported him? I kid you not. CNN is mad that the women who were there supported him because, well, that's not supposed to be the case. So we'll talk about that, plus, a handful of other things, betting markets. And before we get started, my friends, head over to preservegold.com/TimPool. Buy gold. Preservegold.com/TimPool. Financial experts are urging Americans to prepare now. With inflation soaring, a border crisis affecting cities and small towns, and warnings of a recession, my friends, we are living in insane, unpredictable times. To protect your retirement accounts and 401ks, you should strongly consider physical gold and silver. Right now, Preserve Gold has an exclusive offer for my viewers where you can get to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase, as well as a free guide. Text TIM to 50505 to learn more, or visit preservegold.com/TimPool. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews, millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. Always smart to consider gold, and you can check out Preserve Gold. Shout out for sponsoring the show. Also, go to timcast.com, click join us. We got a special members only show for you that's going to be, I don't know, probably really offensive, because we were talking about things before the show, and we're not going to bring it up now but Seamus told me I'm going to get in big trouble.
I did. Yeah.
Go to Timcast.
Tim runs everything through me, by the way. He's like, Seamus, is this going to get me in trouble?
Oh, no.
That's a good one.
I posted and said, hey, Seamus, look at this. And Seamus goes, oh, you're going to get in trouble for this one. So go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. The Uncensored Show will be up at 10, and you as members get to call in and ask us questions, but this one's going to get a little spicy. Also, share the show with everyone you know. Smash the like button. Leave us a good review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got Joel Berry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joel Berry. I'm the managing editor of the Babylon Bee and one of the writers of our new mockumentary, which is entitled January 6th, The Most Deadliest Day. It's a very serious work of journalism. And happy to be here.
Surprisingly more journalism than most corporate news outlets can muster, even though it is satirical. And he's very overzealous.
That's right.
Seamus.
I'm back. Seamus Coughlin. For those of you who don't know, I've done the show a couple times before. Tim has thrown me out on false allegations that I stole spoons. Totally incorrect. I create cartoons on a channel called Freedom Tunes. If you guys want to go over there, check those out. We got one coming up tomorrow about Kamala Harris. I, for one, am excited that she's finally done an interview with someone even remotely adversarial. I'm excited to talk about that. Guess what? We've also got a cartoon about how she's running her campaign and how she is attempting to do these interviews moving forward.
I need to stress that Seamus is the one who is keeping the spoon stealing thing alive.
That's not true.
The story was that we have a house, and there's a basement apartment, and Seamus was using spoons to make coffee or something, and we went to the sink, and I was like, oh, the spoons must be downstairs. I was like, hey, Seamus, can you bring the spoons up? And Seamus was like, yeah, no problem. And then he brought the spoons up, and then while he's bringing the spoons to the kitchen, muttering to himself, he goes, there's an Irishman living under my house, and he steals my spoons.
It was you said that to yourself when you were having a schizophrenic break. Yeah, this is not something that came from me. You guys.
And then I started laughing, and then I said, that's right. And then Seamus was like, haha, it's funny. So that's the origin of the stealing the spoons thing.
That's one side of the story.
I just think it's good that you have more material to work with. Every time Kamala does anything, I feel like it's just it's helpful for both, I guess, the Babylon Bee and for Freedom Tunes.
It's true.
Lot to cover.
Yeah.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. You guys can catch me on this show and on Twitter at Hannah Claire B. Thanks for everything. Let's get started.
Here's the story we got. We'll start with Daily Mail. Social media explodes after Kamala Harris' total train wreck interview as supporters blast Fox News Brett Baier for ambush. No.
What ambush? He asked her like the most basic, fair questions possible.
It was. I got to say, Brett Baier, masterclass in trying to get an answer out of someone who is desperately trying to patter for 40 minutes to not give you an answer. But let me show you a couple clips. We've got this one. Daily Wire clipped this one. Brett Baier says, how many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years? Kamala, I'm glad you raised the issue. Just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million? The point is, let me play the clip for you. It's insane. Here we go.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. It's 1 million, 3 million.
Brett, let's just get to the point. That we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
But I'm not finished. Let's get to the point. Yo, she spoke for 25 seconds and she said literal nothing. Wait, it gets better. Michael Knowles has this clip. Kamala, you and I both know what I'm talking about, but actually don't. What are you talking about? Check this clip out.
Frankly, exhausted of Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. Yeah. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
What?
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on. You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade, people have become. But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, frankly, exhausted.
Yo, that clip, look, I was laughing half the time and banging my head on the coffee table the other half the time. Kamala Harris, this is the way I explain it. She says so many words to say so little. Look at that first clip. Well, I'm glad you brought up immigration because it's a topic of discussion that people want to have. And you know I'm going to talk about it. So please, let me finish. Let's get to the point. Immigration.
Just filibustering, endless filibustering, just to keep him from getting his questions out.
Weirdly, even though she's against the filibuster, she wants to end the filibuster in Congress, but she is pro-filibuster. It kind of is a masterclass in talking past literally everyone. I mean, the fact that she opened with, yes, that's true, that is a topic that people want to talk about, and then somehow just tried to continue on without answering the question.
Well, I say you're half right, because she is absolutely showing a filibuster, but I don't think it's a masterclass, because when she said, and Donald Trump has been running since, and he's like, what? People are not answering the polls, the country's on the wrong track because Donald Trump decided to run for office a year ago.
Yeah.
That's not it. That shows to me that she really has no idea what to say. And then she goes, you know what I'm talking about. We both, it's like, what?
Good for him, though, for saying no. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about, because she's just spewing nonsense. And it's hilarious because everyone on the left is saying, this was an ambush. These were gotcha questions. That's how it feels when someone asks you basic, reasonable questions when all you've ever gotten are softball interviews. But he's not digging up information about her past that she was unprepared to discuss or anything like that. He's not throwing cheap shots at her. He's asking her about the southern border. He's asking her, how can you run as if you're a fresh face and this is all about change and modifying the system when you're the sitting vice president? Just really basic questions that she should have an answer for.
I think he did ask. He mentioned Laken Riley as well as many others. And he said even Joe Biden said that if this man had been properly vetted, she would not have lost her life. Do you think you owe this family an apology? And she said, I'm so sorry for your loss, to one of the women. I think that we should take that as an admission. So she didn't say yes, but she did say, I'm so sorry for your loss. As far as I'm concerned, I think a fair headline is Kamala Harris assumes responsibility for the failed border border vetting under the Biden-Harris administration. You know, I think she's in a position where that was an excellent question from Brett Baier. He had a series of really good questions. They were, I gotta be honest, guys, they're vanilla pudding questions.
Yeah.
He was
very basic.
He wasn't trapping her.
No. He didn't ask her what a woman was.
Right.
That's not a really hard question like that.
No, but you know, it's a cultural, it's a big hit. But there's a way you can ask questions to catch someone. Notably, when we had Marianne Williamson on this show, I will admit that I did a gotcha on her, where I asked her, we were talking about social justice and things, and I said, do you think that if a person can't get a fair trial, we should still prosecute? And she goes, no, if you can't get a fair trial, then you're free to go. And I said, so if in a state, for instance, someone was accused of a crime and the judge says there is no jurisdiction in the state where this person will get a fair trial, you think we should let this person go? And she goes, yes. And then I said, like Derek Chauvin. And she just went, oh. That was a gotcha. I walked her into it. Brett Baier didn't do anything like that.
Nothing even approaching that.
But I do want to stress, when he asked about, does a family need an apology, Kamala Harris says, I am so sorry for your loss. I am so sorry for your loss. I think we should be Trump should take the line, wow, Kamala Harris apologized for the death of these women. It's very admirable that she accepted responsibility for her failed border policies.
Well, I think there's another line that Trump should take as well, which is, this is the person who some sizable number of people in this country are actually considering electing to place in a position where she's going to be across the table from Putin or Xi. She couldn't tolerate a conversation with Brett Baier, and you saw her lose her temper. You saw her start to flail and get emotional and angry in response to very basic, very fair questions. And she didn't even give answers, even when she was trying to skirt around the questions. She didn't give answers that even sounded slick. Oftentimes, politicians will say something that you know isn't true. You're well aware of the fact that it's a lie, but you say that was rhetorically effective. I understand why they're in the position that they're in. But when he says a majority of Americans think this country's headed in the wrong direction, and she goes, well, Donald Trump is running for president. You go, what? This is supposed to be a person this is someone who's going to be talking to our foreign adversaries?
So I don't normally read Super Chats mid-show, but Steve Powell says Kamala in that interview is like Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny acting like a lawyer.
Yes.
If you know the reference.
Bird law. She was literally practicing bird law. That's what I saw.
Well, my question is that, I mean, they had to have known, her campaign had to have known that this is how it was going to go at some level. So my question is, what was the political calculation there? Like, why did they do this? Okay. Are they so confident that they're confident that she's going to win because they're cheating enough? Or were they that desperate that they needed to put her on an interview like this?
I'm of two minds. One is that, there's a talking point that Donald Trump is ducking the media. Sonny Hawson in The View saying Trump's hiding while Kamala's doing interviews. When Donald Trump was down in the polls, he did a bunch of press. He went on adversarial corporate news outlets as well. And we kept saying the same thing, like, why is he going on? We know they're going to contort and they're going to twist what he's saying. But the Trump campaign's trying to find a way to get some kind of positive message out. Here's the thing. Democrats recently there was an internal report that said their attack ads on Trump are helping him.
I saw that.
You saw it. Yeah. When Donald Trump talks, it helps him more than it hurts him. So Democrats were playing clips of Trump thinking people are going to get mad, and they're like, I actually like what he's saying. So when Trump goes on the corporate press and we say they're going to lie about it, it doesn't matter because Trump gets through to the people. Kamala Harris does not.
That's right.
Kamala is now down in the polls, down in the prediction markets, down in the betting odds. And so her campaign is saying we have to do something. When Donald Trump was doing the press and she wasn't, she started going down. This is when her campaign likely said we need to try to regain the narrative. And it's only been worse. But what do you do when you're in a tailspin? There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, exactly. So like you said, they either have some kind of internal polling saying this is just an absolute certain win. And so that's giving her the freedom to do what she's always secretly wanted to do, like the Call Her Daddy podcast and talking to Brett Baier. Just the things she's always wanted in life, she's now having the opportunity to do because she's just so far ahead in the polls. Or they're going, all right, we're pretty desperate here. We got to try to get her in front of some new people. It's time for a Hail Mary pass. It's time to try something a little bit risky. Now, the one demographic that she's less behind with is white women or are white women.
Right.
And the media has been talking about this a lot because they see that as kind of a silver lining. Is it possible for her to capitalize on the fact that Trump is further behind with white women than any Republican candidate has been, I believe, in decades? There's a couple ways of looking at this. I would say, firstly, it's possible. It's very possible that for some number of white women, and especially because they've been so lied to about the ramifications of abortion bans, they are going out and they're going to vote for Kamala because of this, and it doesn't matter what she says and does, and her campaign knows this, so they're going, well, we can just do whatever we want with her. She's not going to lose the white women, but we are doing poorly with black men and Hispanics and other groups, so we're going to try to get them back, and we're just not even going to worry about whether we appear to be respectable to white women because we believe we own them as a demographic and they're not going to move away from us. That's one possibility. Sorry, I know I'm really long-winded here, but I just want to say one more potential possibility here with the white women for Kamala. There's another potential possibility here, which is that white women seem to be favoring Kamala because they are the group most likely to tell a politically correct lie to a pollster in order to avoid being shamed.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think there is a social component to it. I largely think Kamala Harris did this interview to be able to say, well, I went on Fox. I mean, one of her latest jobs has been Trump is not going is not doing a 60 Minutes interview, even though every president before him has. She is leaving out the fact that he has done 60-minute interviews twice. He's done them in 2020 and 2016. He is one of the presidents who has previously done a 60-minute interview. And so I think they're sort of trying to rely on this relationship that the DNC thinks it has with the media, that no matter what, enough corporate press will come to her defense. They'll say Fox News bullied her. They'll say that she slammed Bret Baier on these issues. They'll say that, actually, Bret Baier is owned by Russia, and this is all just trying to make her look bad. But the reality is that Americans are not going to like this. I mean, worst comes to worst, you'll look at this tomorrow, and no major mainstream outlet will be talking about it, but right-wing Twitter will know all about it, and it will just further divide people.
This interview might actually help her with white women, and I'll tell you why. We saw, for however long that interview was, an hour, she talked in circles, used a lot of words, and said absolutely nothing. White women are also really good at that. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Take it back. That's so late.
Hold on. As someone who uses a Mac, I find that offensive.
Oh, yeah, you have a Mac? What are you doing?
I'm just experimenting with my gender identity.
No, but I mean, we've all listened to our wives as they tell us a story. I mean, it goes the same way as Kamala in an interview. So, I mean, it might endear her to them.
Is that because they feel like your non-reaction means you didn't understand what was said, and so they try to say it again? It's like Bret Baier is supposed to go, egad, I didn't realize Trump said that. So she keeps saying it over and over again, hoping that Bret will get a reaction.
It's very possible. I don't know. I just think that I think she has absolutely no clue what she's doing because she's just not used to speaking to people who don't worship the ground she walks on.
I don't know that people worship. I kind of feel like,
I think when they're around her, they do.
Yeah.
I don't agree. I'd be willing to bet that behind the scenes, she's fairly abused politically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, my hunch is that she's surrounded by people who are always telling her, you're so wonderful. You're a woman of color who's risen up through the system. You're a success story. We love you. You can do no wrong.
You think
but when
Democrats say
she's
that?
not in the room, but when she's not in the room, they're like, that woman.
I think they hate her.
Maybe.
I think they do too.
I think they hate her behind her back.
I think they hate her behind her back, but I think to her face, they know that they're obligated to worship her because she has the good skin color and she's a member of the good sex.
And they needed her, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are all these reports that she has a lot of turmoil, turnover in her staff, that she seems to be someone who needs a lot of guidance. There were reports that people, she would have to sort of walk through meetings she was about to go into. She wanted to be coached on what she had to say to everybody. She doesn't seem like someone who's extremely high confidence. And it wouldn't surprise me if in the weeks leading up to Biden dropping out, everyone around her was like, Kamala, you deserve this. You are the one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is your moment. Hillary Clinton failed so that you could rise up or whatever. And now they have to have this thing where no matter what interview she comes off of, they have to tell her, no, that was really good and you did a good job and they were unfair, but it's skewing all the internal conversations because they're not being accurate. You can't coach someone if you aren't honest with them. If you don't say to her, hey, you don't have it. You need to focus on this. You need to adjust this way. But they can't give her any criticisms because she's too sensitive.
Let's play this next clip.
Test. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, President of the United States in the United States of America should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat.
Can I just look? You know, and the criticism she's getting here is that she's screaming it's a democracy or whatever. But I want to highlight how it took her 35 seconds to say even Mark Milley has criticized Trump. That was 1 second it took me to say it would take you 35 seconds.
Well, it's also
said, when the president of the United States in the United States says that people should be what? When you don't need to say the president of the United States in the United States, say the president. Mm-hmm. But you see how she does this because, you know, look, there's a strategy there. They probably told her, we're going to have you go on this interview. We need you to say 5 words for every 1 word. Mm-hmm. Figure it out. And then she was like, well, okay. And that's exactly what this clip is. The whole thing was this.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. That opening question. Well, I'm glad you brought up immigration because it's a conversation people want to have. It's very important. And I think immigration is important, too. That's why people obviously want to talk about it. Now, I talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it now.
It's like she has to give a book report on a book she didn't read. She's in front of the classroom just trying to stall. Like, well, it's about, the book's called Little Women. She's like, some women are smaller than others. And yeah, it's
in the book really there's a big woman. And she attacks a little woman
as compared
that's wrong.
As compared to the women, the ones that are little, that are small, but they're still women. And Brett Baer's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I kind of feel like when it was obvious that Joe Biden's polls were in the gutter, Trump was going to landslide, down ballot was going to crumble. They had no choice but to remove Joe Biden at the last minute. If they removed Joe Biden but during the primary, RFK Jr. takes the nomination. They can't risk that. So they needed to stall it out.
Yeah.
But then the problem is with only 3 months left, no one else can take this campaign money. And so all these big donors are like, look, we've donated, all the people have donated a lot of money to your campaign. If Biden drops out and you choose anybody else, that money's not going with them. So it has to be Harris. And they're like, Harris can't win. Obama was saying Harris couldn't win a while ago. Now he's going out singing her praises. I think they must have resigned themselves to like, all right, we lost. Because this, my friends, make some popcorn, grab a beer. If you want to have a laugh, you will watch this. You will laugh. I'm not kidding. When Brett Baer, some of the questions he asks, I just bust out laughing because he asks her a question that no one would dare ask her, but needs to be answered for that many of us would talk about, namely like, would you apologize to this family or whatever? And then she just spirals out of control. And it's just good stuff. It's good stuff. In the end, I don't see how a human being in this country who is rational would vote for her.
Well, everyone can vote, not just the rational people.
And it's not about her.
Unfortunately.
It's about being compliant with Democrats, right?
Yeah.
They are voting blue because that's what they're going to do no matter what. And I think that is.
And a lot of people are just voting against Donald Trump, too. I mean, I think a lot of Kamala's voters aren't too crazy about her either.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be, if she loses this year in 2028, campaigning for her to come back. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not her. It's just that she is in this seat because they changed horses midstream. They dumped Biden and now probably look back thinking, oh no, that was a bad mistake.
I think they're counting on voter fraud at this point. That's like their only play they have left.
I don't know if they're planning on winning. I think maybe it's
really
start the wars they want to happen that Donald Trump can't stop.
Wow.
It's like, yeah, we're
interesting.
Kamala said in that interview that all the PhDs say that Donald Trump's plan is going to give us a recession by the middle of next year. So I'm wondering if they're like, okay, we don't want to waste any up and coming talent. We have a limited bench. Like, who do they have? Newsom, maybe. Buttigieg, maybe. Probably not.
I think Newsom's definitely running in 2028.
Right, I agree. And they're probably saying anybody we put up is going to lose to Trump because we're not strong enough right now. So the plan, I think, is prepare for 2028. Sabotage Trump before he gets in, set things up so that the economy tanks, so that war starts. Then you say, I told you so, and take back power in 2028.
Mm-hmm. And the best way to get Trump off the table is actually to let him serve 4 more years so he cannot run again as president. I mean, they're saying all kinds of things like he's going to be a dictator and he's going to stay in office forever. But the reality is, if you really, really don't like Trump, you want him to not be able to, and that's actually the most efficient way.
That's one thing the left has always done well is the long game. They think past the next election. They do a good job at that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Republicans do. New York Times says why an interview on Fox News made sense for Kamala Harris. The vice president will take questions, blah, blah, blah. Vice president is going to interview, blah, blah, blah. They waste so many words. This is why I don't like the corporate press. I'm sorry to divert like this, but anyway. We very much think that bringing our message to audiences who might not agree with you on every issue is a very important thing to do, said Manuel Bonder, the press secretary for Governor Josh Shapiro, the Democrat from PA who regularly appears on Fox shows and was on Miss Harris's shortlist to be her running mate. If this was what they were hoping for, it is very, very sad. We've got this from Just the News. In contentious Fox interview, Harris cannot answer why Americans think the country is off course. Oof. It's not just, okay, first, Brett Baer showed a poll. This country is off course. 79% said the country is on the wrong track. And she said, well, Donald Trump is running. What does that have to do with the last 3.5 years, which has led this country off course? Not only does she not know, she couldn't. This is like the Aleppo moment for Harris. That moment right there. The country is off track. People think so. What say you? Trump is running for office. Literally, that was her answer. Yep. Trump is running for office.
Yeah. It's really embarrassing.
She might as well have said the squirrels bury nuts for winter. Well, but what? It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
This is the left-wing playbook. Every single one of our policy failures are actually the product of our political enemies. The fact that Donald Trump is able to run for president is somehow to blame for everything that's gone wrong over the last 3.5 years. It's nonsense. And even though it seems ridiculous to us, it seems perfectly logical to her because she can't think within any other framework. Like, that's what the ideologues tell her. That's what she believes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's dogma to them. It's always a Republican's fault. It's always Trump's fault.
And when boxed into a corner, she's coached to attack Trump. I mean, that's what she thinks is popular with her voters. Don't you wish she had just been like, well, it's all Joe Biden's fault. Yeah. Just to watch the left-wing media and voters.
She wouldn't do it, though.
She wouldn't do it. I mean, that's the obvious answer. Throw Biden under the bus.
But
he
asked her about it. He kept saying, like, you said you wouldn't change anything about the past 4 years. She refused, when asked several times, to say anything about Biden. Specifically, it was incredible. You will laugh, my friends. Grab your popcorn, watch it. He said, at what point did you realize Joe Biden's cognitive decline?
Yeah.
I was just clapping like, yes. And then she was like, Joe Biden is good and Donald Trump is running for office. And he's like, yes, but at what point did you recognize Joe Biden's cognitive decline? Joe Biden is not Donald Trump. She couldn't do it.
No.
She couldn't bring herself to be like, Joe lost it. We knew it. Like, here's the reality everybody knows. Biden's brain wasn't working for a long time, and they were lying because they wanted to get to this point. Kamala Harris does not have the skills to pay the bills, and now they're stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and everyone knows that she's been tied to what Biden has been doing from the beginning. She can't separate herself from it now. I mean, we know that Biden has been in cognitive decline. He has even said, I think he's thrown her under the bus a couple times, saying like she's been in every room, involved in every decision.
Reading from the same songbook is what he said.
Yeah, I mean, he's cornered her, either through just sheer idiocy or malice because he's bitter and he's trying to sabotage her, which is would be hilarious by itself. But he has cornered her to where she can't plausibly separate herself from anything Biden did.
Well, here we go.
Be able to.
We've got the latest update from Polymarket. Now, this is not yet reacted. The interview just dropped, so most people haven't seen it, but already Donald Trump is up 17 points on Polymarket. 17. In aggregate on RCP, Trump is up 16.4 points.
Oh, my gosh.
Crap, dude.
Just remember, but everyone watching, betting odds don't vote, polls don't vote. You have to get out there. We got to act like we're behind.
And understand the aggregate betting odds may say Trump 57.7 and Harris 41.3, but the winning margin for Trump might be negative. Yeah. He might lose the popular vote and win the electoral college.
Exactly.
So this is not a poll. It doesn't work the same way.
And you got to remember too, election night 2020. I remember CNN, Fox News, they were reporting on the betting odds, and Trump was like in the 90s odds to win.
Good point.
Until the midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. trucks of votes came in, and it flipped. Yeah. That's how.
Imagine making a bet on Joe Biden at midnight when you're at
set for
20
life
times odds. You're like, wow, 20 to 1 on my bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm seeing some coverage. I know Axios had a story like this today saying, well, here's three realities if Trump were to win, because some of it is if Trump wins, but the House and Senate are blue, he's stuck for 2 years. If that one chamber is blue and the other one's red, maybe a little bit better, still not super effective. And so, while Kamala Harris may not be able to defeat Donald Trump, the down ticket push, people who are saying she's a weak candidate, therefore I need to make sure my senator, my congressman, my governor are Democrats, might become stronger. And so there's I know why all of our eyes are on the top of the ticket, but we have to think strategically.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think the biggest win for the left would be to let Donald Trump win, because they got so much done in the 4 years that he was president in terms of organizing and agitation and violence and that's how they get stuff done, through political violence. And his presidency caused such a reaction culturally and politically on the left that I think that they would stand to win a lot if he was reelected.
Here's the latest Real Clear Politics no toss-up projection. Trump Vance 302 to Kamala to Harris Waltz 236. So this is obviously, if we do the ratings, right now there's 104 electoral toss-ups. But based on the polling lean of these states, if we remove the toss-ups, right now, based on polling, if the polling stands, if the election happened right now based on polling, Trump wins PA and Michigan and Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada.
Okay, what if you give him Michigan and Pennsylvania? I'm curious.
Gave Trump Michigan and Pennsylvania?
Yeah, give those to Kamala.
Oh,
Michigan
okay.
And Pennsylvania.
So if Michigan and Pennsylvania go Kamala, she wins.
Well, but
she wins by 2.
So here's the thing, though. Right now in the polling, Philly is, and Pennsylvania as a whole are leaning. Not Philly.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. What Real Clear Politics is not factoring in is the one electoral vote from Nebraska, which would make it 269.
Which is even more in play because they just ruled that felons are allowed to vote in. There's this whole dispute over it in Nebraska. And so the area that is most likely to lean blue is even more in play than ever, despite the fact that most of the state is red.
Funniest possible outcome. Hey, it would actually be horrifying.
What's Elon's law?
Oh, the funniest possible outcome is the one that will happen?
Yep.
Oh, man. No. Well, here's what I think is going to happen. So right now, it is true that in many of the swing states, Trump is up. But as soon as people in those swing states see this interview and learn that the reason that 13,000 murderers and about 11,000 sex criminals that we know of were let into this country isn't Biden or Kamala's fault, it's actually because Trump is running for president, then they'll all vote for Kamala.
Well, because what happened was Trump stood up and he rode on the escalator for the second time and said, I'm going to run for office. And then instantly the border barriers exploded and, people just started jumping 20 feet in the air over them and running in, and it's because Trump said those words.
It's his fault. It's his fault.
Yes,
Which, it's hilarious, too, because everybody knows.
Wait. Hold on. I'm sorry. As soon as Trump announced that he was running for president, it was so exciting to everyone in the world that they all ran full speed to try and bask in the glory of a Trump presidency. I get it. I get it.
Part of what's hilarious, though, is that in 2020 and 2021, after Biden had been elected and was sworn in, so in 2021, when the border crisis really began, one thing that basically every pundit or commentator or journalist recognized was that part of the reason that people were pouring over the border was because of the rhetoric that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were running on. So realistically, if you actually could blame someone who was just running for president and not elected for a crisis, it would be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the border.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But they always accuse you of what they're doing.
I really do feel like Trump has won the argument at this point. There's no way Kamala Harris goes on Joe Rogan. They've lost control of the narrative. They're not pulling back from this. There's no interview she can do. There's nothing that will allow her to recover from this. She kept saying in this interview, my economic plan is going to do this. And I was like, Brett, please ask her what's her plan.
I know.
What
the fact that he did, but this is what I'm saying. He was not going after her like a pit bull. These were really basic questions. These were really easy questions, and there were things he did let her get away with.
I wish he would have gone after her, particularly about that line she kept using about Trump promising to use the military on American citizens, which is a complete fabrication.
It's total nonsense.
Total nonsense.
Just like Trump grabbing the wheel of the Secret Service's SUV on January 6th. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That they were claiming that?
That was, what was that, Cassidy Hutchinson?
Yeah, they even did a comic strip, they did illustrations of it.
They said said that Donald Trump grabbed the steering wheel of the vehicle he was in. The only problem is he was in the Beast, and it has a barrier between the driver and him for security reasons. And so I'm like, did Donald Trump phase through solid matter to do this? What is the world they live in? But Kamala Harris gets... I suppose it's just simple to say, if they don't have lies, they have nothing else.
Exactly.
And that's why they come up with these stories. When she said in the interview that Donald Trump said he would arrest those who disagree with him over and over again, do you want to know the origin of this? Donald Trump said, okay, let's start from the beginning. Kamala Harris goes on CBS. CBS puts up a clip of the interview. Instantly, we start seeing the betting odds shift in favor of Donald Trump. Massive waves of criticism saying, wow, she looks stupid. CBS airs a different version of the answer. People noticed that CBS went in later and edited the clip. For some reason, her answer was different. Trump says, along with many other commentators, that this was collusion between the news organization and Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Trump then says that should be illegal for a presidential candidate to collude with the media so that they give her preferential treatment and try and make her look better. Should be a crime. She should be disqualified. She should be in jail. Then Bill Maher goes, did you hear this? That Donald Trump said she should be in jail for going on CBS? Then Kamala Harris goes, he's saying he wants to arrest people who disagree with him. Oof. The origin is, and you don't look, by all means, say Trump is wrong to say that. You're allowed to. I'm not saying he's right. He said a corporate news outlet colluding with a candidate for favorable coverage should be criminal. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe you think he's not right. Okay, that's fine. Tell me that. But when they play this game of Purple Monkey Dishwasher, where they just say garbled. Okay, I have said this before. I'll say it again. The left is an ant death spiral. You ever see those?
Yep.
Ants follow pheromones of other ants, and that's how they know where the food is. But if an ant loops around in a circle, the other ants start looping in a circle, and they all walk around in one circle until they die of starvation. Because they're only following the scent. They don't know where they're going. This is what liberals are doing. Kamala Harris now says to Brett Baer, Trump says that he's going to use the military and American people and arrest those who disagree with him. Now some 60-year-old woman who watched this or who watches MSNBC is calling her friends, be like, Trump's going to arrest people for disagreeing with them? And this is where the Purple Monkey Dishwasher takes off.
Who was it that alleged? Oh my gosh, there was some official who was saying that Trump could use special forces against his enemies. Which the most hilarious part of that is the idea that any of Trump's political opponents would necessitate the use of SEAL Team 6. We gotta get Adam Schiff and Rosie O'Donnell. Better bust out the special forces. But it's all complete and total nonsense. They have literally gone after him with transparent political prosecutions. They have redefined laws, the severity of the punishment for those laws once they're broken, and the statute of limitations just to go after him in New York. Everyone knows this. Everyone sees what they're doing, and they're going to turn around and say Trump wants to use the military on American citizens. It's nonsense. If Donald Trump wanted to do that, right? If Donald Trump was going to use the military against his political opponents, if that was ever something he was interested in doing, you would think when he supposedly attempted a coup and he was the commander-in-chief of the United States military at the time that he was supposedly attempting this coup, he would have done it then. But no, instead, even though he had that power, he tried to quote-unquote overthrow the U.S. government by dog-whistling to a crowd of unarmed boomers to walk into the Capitol and chant.
Okay, here's what I think. In this country, we have two factions, principal factions, adults and children.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fair way to put it. Now, unfortunately for Democrat voters, they have a tendency to be the children in this equation. Not all of them, but most of them. The Republicans, the tendency to be the adults in the room, but some of them are quite children. And I mean that children, I don't mean that literally. I mean they're immature and they lack understanding. They're naive. And so what I mean by this is, on the Republican side, you have former Democrats, many of them, 9 million Democrats switched from the Democratic Party to vote for Trump in 2016. And we've seen that trend actually continue quite a bit. RFK Jr. shaking Donald Trump's hand is a huge sign. The Cheneys joining up with Kamala Harris is, I don't know what that is. That's weird. But sure. So what I see now, and I'm going to shout out Piers Morgan, because you may have seen, I did that interview. I don't know if you guys saw it, or the Uncensored show. And I'm getting, a lot of people are hitting me up being like, sir, how did you manage this? Because I'll give you one example. This show starts off with Piers Morgan saying Trump is doing badly with women. Kamala is doing badly with men. And I said, I think, I gave a little bit of a statement ending with, I think many women will hold their nose to vote for Donald Trump, but I do think there's a lot of men who are just sexist, do not want to vote for women no matter what. And I don't know how Kamala overcomes that. All of a sudden, this woman is just screaming my name, yelling at me, accusing me of being a COVID denier who then got COVID and took ivermectin, which none of which aligns in reality. I never denied COVID. I always said, talk to your doctor. I never was anti-vax. I was never pro-ivermectin. Anybody could watch into my videos. That was always the case. But they live in this reality where they get their information from snippets out of context, or they heard it from a friend. This is why I say they're children. The adults in the room say, let me look into that. Let me check. So when, and this is a tendency, not absolute. There are certainly right-wingers who are children and just believe whatever they hear. I can't tell you how many people told me that they thought that the government was making hurricanes. And I'm like, okay, guys, let's calm down a little bit. But for the Democrats, their high-level commentators say things that they heard from a friend as fact. And on the right, the high-level commentators pull up the DOJ and they pull up the New York Times and use these as references. I've always made an important point on this show and a morning show to pull up the article I am reading from. And I tell you this, still, when I read an article from the Star Tribune that said Ilhan Omar, and this is a quote, not from me, may have married her brother, I said, wow, I can't believe the Star Tribune has reported that. Media Matters then ran an article saying Tim Pool claims, or Tim Pool says or something, Ilhan Omar married her brother, which I never did. But they don't, the people who fall for Media Matters tricks, the people who fall for this manipulation aren't smart enough to do the actual research. They sit in their lounge chairs watching CNN going, whoa, while the rest of us are trying to figure out what's really going on. The problem, they vote too.
Yeah. Well, it's not just an adults versus children election. It's very much a men versus women election too. And I think a lot of this problem is exacerbated by the fact that people aren't getting married anymore. I can't tell you how many women I've known and still know who started out kind of center left, default feminists, who get married, they become a little more right wing, and then they have kids, and then they become raving right wing lunatics because they're suddenly thinking about their kids, and they're thinking about different things than they did when they were single women. And the fact that we have more single women and more single men than we ever have before has kind of led to this rift where you just don't have this healthy relationship between men and women anymore, and you're really seeing it in the electoral process.
Let me throw it to the post-millennial. Joy Reid says wanting to have children is part of nationalistic drive towards fascism.
What is?
I do believe that this election is a litmus test for American tolerance for fascism. Let me play the clip for you.
Wasn't she killed by that cop?
I do believe that this election is a litmus test for American tolerance for fascism. The elements of fascism are rooted in this nationalistic drive for more babies for the state, for a strongman-driven nation, and a deep sort of state-based religiosity. So I do believe we have a media problem, and we do have some of our media that is leading people toward fascism. The question of America has become too soft and feminine. I think that is it's a fascist litmus test. So this question of whether the society is too soft and feminine, it was alarming to me that a majority of Hispanic Protestants agree, but that's not shocking. Immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country. This is one of the most terrifying things that you've heard a presidential candidate say, because it is straight out of Mein Kampf. 23% of Jewish respondents agree with that, because that's straight out Nazi talk.
So the majority of Jews don't. By the way, so the majority of Jews don't agree that that's something out of Mein Kampf. To be like 23% agree. You mean a minority? 1/4 of them?
I just want to stress, it's a death cult.
Yeah.
And I'm not being cute. Okay, This is not meant to be haha silly. When prominent liberal personalities say it is bad to have kids, there is one simple mathematical equation you need to understand. If a society does not have kids, the society ceases to exist in a few generations.
Yep.
I've said this 100 times before. I mean, they just hate the family. That's all this is. What is
fascism
about
babies?
Mean here?
They hate babies.
No, I know, exactly. And the safest place for a baby to exist is within the confines of a loving marriage, in a productive, happy, healthy family. They hate that. They can't stand that. The fact that she says having more children for the state, that just shows you where her head's at. That's what she thinks the purpose of children are. So when people say they want to have more children, she goes, more kids for the state? No. children belong to their families.
But this is the same kind of ideology that says homeschooling is bad, like not wanting to go. So it's kids for the state if they're allowed to be educated and controlled by the state. But if you just want to have them because you believe your culture is good, you believe your family is good, you think that America's a nice country and you don't want its birth rates to collapse, then you're a fascist.
Well, yeah, politically they're anti-family because a strong family is the greatest threat to a strong state. They're anti-human. Because, they just hate God and they hate everything God created and they hate everything God designed. The humans are made to work a certain way. Life works best when we kind of follow the way God designed it and planned it. And leftists just resent that. It's all about wanting to be your own God.
Yeah, and I'll take it a layer deeper, too. Part of what being your own God means is defining your own terms of logic. The reality is, even though, of course, as a Catholic, I believe very strongly and firmly in Scripture and tradition, a lot of the moral rules that we're talking about here are just moral precepts that you can arrive at through pure
natural law.
Natural logic. Yeah, exactly. So, for example, you don't need to have divine revelation to know that the best place for a child to be raised is within a family, and the best way to ensure that that happens is if you're not promoting sex outside of marriage, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, so many of what we call right-wing or even religious principles are just basic, straightforward logic that you don't actually need Scripture to inform you on.
You don't need commandments to honor your father and mother. And for the secular atheists out there who are like, I don't care about the commandments, then I'll throw it to Tony Stark in Captain America Civil War, when they discovered that Bucky Barnes killed Tony Stark's mom, and Captain America says it wasn't him, it's not his fault, and he says, I don't care, he killed my mom. You don't need Scripture to explain to a man that he loves his mother and would kill someone who would dare harm his family. And the reason for it is basic logic and also rooted in science. When human beings survive, they are proving to reality that their strategy worked. When they have kids, they are proving to reality that they have survived beyond themselves. So when the child honors and trusts in their parents, they are inheriting survival traits. This is science, but it's also in Scripture. But there are people who, again, they reject anything that exists in a right-wing tradition because it is tradition, I suppose, or because they assume it's derived from nothing.
Well, yeah, and in reality is a reminder to everyone that there is something higher than you, that exists outside of you, that transcends you. And leftists resent that because their whole philosophy depends on the idea that you can speak reality into existence, that what you believe and what you say, you make your own reality and you make your own meaning. And when reality hits them in the face, that makes them go crazy.
They call it manifesting.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of friends who are like manifesting things. And I'm like, bro, you're not like Ian thinks he can make it rain.
But I mean, even at the political
Babylon
level,
B manifests stuff by writing things in our headlines, and they come true.
That is
to each
true.
other.
Maybe you guys are going to discover a new religion here.
But no, I mean, even at the political level, obviously they don't discuss manifesting, but they'll talk about self-ID, which is essentially the same thing. I am just a woman because I've said I'm a woman. Now, one of the funny things about self-ID is it inherently collapses in on itself. It's an absurdity. It's actually a logical contradiction, because if I were to say that I identify as a woman, right? Well, what do they say? Well, I didn't just become a woman. I've been a woman my whole life. Okay, so when I identified as a man, I wasn't really a man. So you're saying that my self-ID isn't always accurate.
Right. There's no logic.
Yeah, there's zero logic, but it actually, like, self-ID literally refutes itself.
Speaking of which, who is that guy that recently came out? He said
Josh Sider.
Yeah, he faked being a transgender person for 6 months.
We actually have a camera guy filming the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. That's insane.
I mean, we knew. I think a lot of people kind of had an idea, but we had actually ended up talking to him because he came on the show, and he said it was a social experiment where he was trying to prove the hypocrisy and gullibility of the left. So it was an absurdist character where he's like obviously a ripped guy who goes to the gym with chest hair and facial hair but wearing lipstick. And he has these funny bits where he's like, I said to the man out on the date with me that I think the man should pay. And I pushed the check to him. And then he says, okay, then you should pay, and pushed it back. And that was rude. And so it was like kind of obvious, but he followed all the rules.
But the fact that he committed to it for like 5 months, that is dedication right there.
Yeah, people were saying he's who was it, Jim Belushi?
Well, was that, oh my gosh, that old film? Wait, what? Oh, when does Jim Belushi... What film did Jim Belushi do that in?
He was a character actor.
Oh, okay. So he's like literally
Like method actor?
Am I saying the wrong actor, maybe?
Are you thinking of like Miss Doubtfire with Robin Williams?
No.
Or just that they're
too
saying
young.
he
I
took
mean,
on this character so intensely.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's what character actors
Who's
do,
that?
right?
Who's that famous method actor who played Lincoln? He played
Meth
Bill
head
the
actor?
Butcher.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah,
yes.
he's great, man. I
He
love
is
it.
But
Daniel
I
Day-Lewis
wanna-
of social experiments.
I want to bring it back to this because we're talking about an election right now where Joy Reid is saying if you want to have, I'm sorry, let me make sure it's perfectly clear that the want of children is part of a nationalistic drive towards fascism. That is to say, if you are a woman or man and you're in your mid to late 20s and you're thinking about having a family, which is about the time you should be, you're a fascist.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all humans everywhere.
This is any time you propose anything that's good for children or good for the future, they call it fascism. When you say you should be able to show porn to children in schools, they say that's fascism.
This is the meme where literal everything is fascism.
Fitness, health and fitness is fascism, you know? And it makes me so mad. Being a father of 5 kids and knowing how much joy a child brings, not only, I mean, are these people evil liars who are, you know, taking us all towards civilizational suicide, but they're robbing so many young people, gullible young minds, of incredible joy that they could be having in their life if they were willing to have kids. Too many young people are scared to have kids, and it's because of these evil psychos.
Well, and it changes all the time, right? Right now it's nationalist fascism or whatever, but before it was the environment. I mean, there were studies that said so many young couples were saying they didn't think they would have kids, or they were sure they weren't going to have kids because of anxiety over the climate. I mean, give it 2 more years, I'm sure they'll have something else to argue. The reality is that they are preying on what I think is a totally natural apprehension. You know, having children is serious.
Scary.
It's a big responsibility. It changes your life, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
And you'll never be ready for it.
No, I'm sure.
I don't care how financially stable you think you are. No one is ready to have kids, and you just got to do it.
Right, but they're preying on this anxiety, this naturally occurring like self-doubt, right? Like, am I ready? Can I provide for whatever? That's fine. But the alternative is especially right now, you'll see this JD Vance being like, we should do whatever we can to support people.
I love him.
Who want to have. He's fantastic.
The most pro-family candidate I've ever seen, and actually putting policy ideas behind it to support people who want to have kids is just, I love it.
What are these, like, does Joy Reid have a family? Like, what are they going to do? I guess it's going to be like Chelsea Handler, where she says she wakes up in the morning, does drugs, and masturbates. And it's a little crass to say, but like that's literally what she said she does.
Well, that's the vision we're sold of what happiness is. Unbridled sexual pleasure, completely disconnected from reason, being able to do whatever you want all the time, going to concerts, spending money on vacations and traveling, and not contributing anything to society or the future. That's what happiness is. That's what you'll be fulfilled doing. And it's actually the people who live normal, traditional lives with a family, with a wife, with children, with a career that is conducive to the flourishing of their family, who are actually just pretending to be happy. Don't let them fool you. The suburbs are a horrible place to live, and everyone truly feels suffocated by the picket fence that they live behind, and
Meanwhile,
nobody likes
Coda
having
from that
that
show
leave it
just
to
left
Beaver
for the
style
suburbs.
life.
Bro.
But the city is just so great, and we love being screamed at and stabbed by homeless people on the subway. You're the one who's faking being happy.
The American dream has always been to live in a 5x10 bachelor apartment with no bathroom or sink, and then to walk outside to the smell of sour milk, to spend $50 every day dealing with buses and high cost of food, and then you have nothing left over at the end of the day. But that's the dream.
That's the dream. That's what you want. You're happy.
Because you asked, Joy Reid has 3 kids. I looked it up.
3 kids. Oh my gosh.
I want to. This is kind
She's
of
a fascist.
one of the only points.
Why?
That they
Oh,
have
wait.
here.
No.
Yeah,
Unless she's saying it was an accident.
I think it was
It says the
intentional.
want of having children is fascist, so she must have accidentally had kids.
Yeah, she didn't want it. She did it under.
It wasn't. No, it
duress.
wasn't. Does she have kids?
Yeah, she has 3.
Well, it wasn't fascist when she did it. Obviously. Obviously, you guys. Come on.
It's only fascist when the birth rate is collapsing.
Only fascist when white people.
When white people do it.
Exactly,
That's right.
literally. It's fascist when white people have children. It's fascist when you try to do something about the collapsing birth rate in your country that isn't just importing millions of people from other countries to replace you and your family.
Yeah.
Anything besides that is
Do
fascism.
as I say and not as I did,
Yeah.
says Joy Reid.
As I did.
Very
Well,
depressing.
let's jump back to politics because we have this from the Post Millennial. Let's see. Oh no, wait, not this one. Where's the? Here we go. Border Patrol agents say there will be an exodus if Kamala Harris wins. "Quote: I'm not doing this ish again," one agent said. 4 more years of hell.
Good God.
This is exactly what Kamala Harris wants to hear, though. Look at that. Look at that face. She's excited. She's excited for this. Look. They are the ones who ended Remain in Mexico. 90 executive orders were overturned. Was it 90, I believe? At the start of the administration that allowed the border to explode. To hear this, Kamala and Joe are high-fiving. This is what they're hoping for, because it gives them an excuse. It's not our fault. They all resigned.
I feel for these guys too. Just the things, the human tragedy that these guys have seen over the last 4 years. I mean, I saw a figure the other day, something close, almost 400,000 unaccompanied minors have crossed the border, many of whom have been lost, many of whom are being used in sex trafficking and forced labor. That's almost as many slaves as we brought into North America during the entirety of the slave trade. I mean, that's insane. In just 4 years. And these border agents have been the last line of defense, having to deal with all this, having all their tools taken from them, seeing dead kids and dead women in the desert. I can't imagine the toll that must take on a guy trying to do his job. I wouldn't want to do it for 4 more years either.
No, I think it's wonderful that they're speaking up for themselves. They're saying we will not be treated this way. I think it's great that they are saying we cannot do another 4 years of being blamed for all of this. I mean, that's what I really felt like. I mean, and really, if the Biden administration wanted to get serious, which they obviously never did, they would have removed Alejandro Mayorkas because he really was terrible at his job and also betrayed the agents. I mean, I don't remember, if you remember the scandal with like the theoretically
horsewhips,
horsewhips, which the photographer who took the photo of the agent and the migrant was like, no, they weren't whipping them. Like, that's not what's happening at all. And meanwhile, Mayorkas had already gone to Congress and condemned the agents. I mean, the Biden administration, obviously I don't agree with their policy on it, but they also treated the agents who are in a position where they are trying to do very difficult things with no resources and no support, were constantly thrown under the bus by the federal government. And I loved when they endorsed, I think it was their executive council endorsed Donald Trump. I love that they are saying we are not going to stand around for this. Obviously, there's a question of national security. Not so good for us if there's a mass exodus. On the other hand, good, advocate for yourself, because the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has totally treated you with disregard, and I would think with malice, really.
Mayorkas is a sinister character. He's a sinister character.
Well, one of the things that made me so angry about that hoax was, even if it was true, you've got literal millions of people pouring over the border right now, children being sex trafficked across our border, fentanyl coming across our border and killing our citizens, and you're concerned that Border Patrol agents might have been mean to people illegally entering our country? That's what we're supposed to be up in arms about? That's what gets national news coverage? Who cares?
Did you see that?
Who cares? Somebody needs to solve this problem before we start policing whether we're solving this problem in the nicest possible way that ensures nobody has their feelings hurt when they're trying to disrespect the laws of our country.
But then they would have to agree that it was a problem, and the Biden-Harris administration tried for as long as they could to say it wasn't a problem at all.
Did you guys see the meme from J.D. Vance?
I did. I thought that was brilliant.
Millionaire, and it's Martha Redditz. And the question is the acceptable number of apartment complexes taken over by illegal alien Venezuelan gangs. And it's A, a handful, B, 3, C, a bushel, or D, 0. And the correct answer was A, a handful. And then it's J.D. Vance making that face from the debate.
What a great meme, that face.
I just really want to say, in response to that, those apartment buildings being taken over, when you have literal Venezuelan gangs who have illegally entered into our country and are starting to conquer apartment complexes, I just want everyone to know that I sleep very soundly at night knowing no Border Patrol agents are hitting illegals entering into our country with ropes, because that would just break my heart. That would be a national issue that we would have to have a national dialogue over.
But let's break this down. That story was also, as I mentioned, Democrats are children. They saw an image of reins flailing in the wind, and they went, those are whips.
Yes, dude, well, think about it. She said that was only a handful of buildings. When we saw a literal, 2 or 3 migrants supposedly being whipped, even when they were not, and it turned out to be a lie, it was like, if this happens to one single person, we as a country stand condemned of living up to our moral duty. But then when we allow Venezuelan gangs to take over multiple apartment buildings in Colorado, it's just a handful. Who cares?
It's okay when it happens to Americans.
And there was a worker who was mercilessly beaten. And there are photos that are so graphic we can't show them. But that person's life doesn't matter to these corporate journalists.
The Babylon Bee covered this story.
They're not journalists.
With a headline, ABC News argues 9/11 was overblown as it was only a handful of buildings.
No, but it's literally that level of argumentation.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. That's why I say it's a death cult. They don't want you to have kids. If you want to have kids, you're a fascist. They celebrate death and destruction, and they defend things that cause chaos. And I got to be honest, guys. Look, I know not everybody out there watching is religious or anything. I don't consider myself Christian, but boy, does it feel demonic It feels as though these people have become possessed by some malevolent force, because how do you get angry when law enforcement is trying to stop people from literally breaking the law, illegally entering the country? You defend criminal gangs that are threatening and mercilessly beating innocent people. You defend them. And now we know Tren de Aragua's taken over. They're taking over Times Square, and they've taken over 4 complexes in San Antonio. 1 was raided by cops. 3 more have yet to be raided.
And those fascist cops got away with raiding that building?
How is it that Democrat politicians and these liberals are always on the side of whatever is destroying and hurting innocent people?
I have a theory about that. I think that they have debauched themselves into such a callous state of spiritual ugliness that anytime they see anything that reminds them that there's anything in the world besides their own hideousness, it upsets them, and they want to see it harmed.
Well, you said demonic. It is. It's Luciferian. It's the Paradise Lost. The Satan character says it's better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven, and that's kind of their mentality. They'd rather have power and rule over the ashes and the chaos than to serve in a place of order and heaven. So,
well, hyperpolarization. More and more people just want to be on a team. But when I look at the right now, whatever you want to call it, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump, this is not your traditional right-wing conservative group. RFK, I wouldn't call it conservative. Tulsi Gabbard especially not.
No, I wouldn't even call Trump a conservative on many issues. No. He's very moderate.
He's a 90s Democrat.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you have the Democratic Party, which don't represent any real ideology other than chaos.
Yep.
It's the Joker.
Well, and this is what you're saying about how people just want to be on a team. It's true. I mean, the country is certainly becoming more and more polarized. I personally would like to belong on the team that sees American apartment buildings being taken over by third world gangs and says that's not good. I want to be on the team that says that's actually bad and we should be horrified.
What did Pelosi say when California was trying to give $150,000 to illegal immigrants to buy houses? We're going to give them the American dream.
They're going to take it from you first.
And that means Gen Z will be left holding an empty bag. That's wild, dude. I can't believe... No, I can believe that for sure, but Gen Z, if they're... I don't know how many of them are going to vote for Kamala Harris, but boy, talk about burning yourself to the ground.
Gen Z, I feel, is kind of weirdly based. They grew up under wokeism. They grew up being taught that white people are terrible. That and so there's something happening with Gen Z that it'll be interesting to see what happens when they come of voting age, I think.
Yeah, I'm hoping that a good portion of them are just going to be based. I know that Gen Z guys are actually leaning based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I say based because they're not necessarily conservative. They're just anti-establishment, anti-uniparty, and they're looking for anything that's different because, as I mentioned, they're giving away the American dream that belongs to the next generation. They're giving it to non-citizens.
And Kamala uniting with Dick Cheney, what is more uniparty than that? I mean, I've never seen a race that's more evidently the people versus the machine.
Right.
I mean, it's not ideological really on either side. It's just the people versus this uniparty machine.
It is amazing that Trump's bipartisan is incorporating 2 former Democrats who the party really rejected, Tulsi and RFK. And in response, the DNC and the Harris campaign are like, well, we're going to bring you the most establishment Republicans we can find. That most, especially with Liz Cheney, who was ousted by a different Republican challenger. I mean, these are Republicans have rejected because the party changed under Trump. I do want to ask, though, especially since you have younger children, do you think Gen Z is likely to be more polarized? Like, even if half are more conservative, they're this new energy, are the other half sort of too progressive to be recalled back to sanity?
Yeah, it's possible. Well, because the other half is kind of all mentally ill and on drugs. Like that's
crazy.
That's the other thing that that is kind of the wild card in this whole situation is so many kids are medicated now. Mentally ill.
I saw a crazy meme where a person said that they were feeling depressed and unmotivated. They went to a therapist, and the therapist offered them SSRIs, and they immediately snapped back all the complications, all the news stories, to which the doctor says, "You are correct, you're very smart," and then threw away the prescription. Like, and then it's a meme. I don't know if it's real, but they were just like, why would they even try to prescribe that if they knew that stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a medical solution to a spiritual problem, ultimately.
I completely agree with you. And people are suffering from many mental health issues because they're just not living as man is meant to live. They're doing horrible, disgusting things, and they feel guilt about it, and they try to repress the guilt, and it ends up manifesting as depression or anxiety, or they're allowing themselves to be used, or whatever it is. But if you actually look at the Pew Research data we have on this, liberal women between the ages of 18 and 29 are majority mentally ill. 56% of them have been diagnosed with a mental health condition. People on the left...
Women are crazy?
Liberal women, specifically. But liberal women, it's true. Liberal women, and the reality is liberal men are significantly more likely than conservative men to be diagnosed with mental health issues. And
because liberalism gives you a broken worldview that you can't maintain.
Exactly. And so what I find to be one of the most hilarious ironies of modern political history is that given how mentally ill the left is, literally by the actual data, which shows they're significantly more likely to be mentally ill, we can only conclude that it was Reagan shutting down the mental institutions that made the modern left possible. If we still had mental institutions,
all the time, dude.
If we still had mental institutions and we still locked the craziest people up instead of telling them there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine, why don't you actually shape the political discourse
or teach
and completely restructure our understanding of what the differences between men and women are, or other such understandings we've had for all of history until, we deregulated the asylums, and all of a sudden a bunch of people started saying it's not crazy to dress up as a woman when you're a man or think that you're non-binary. And now what ends up happening is you have a lot of people who wouldn't ordinarily suffer with that kind of psychological pathology, but because of social contagion, they're doing it. So you have people who in the past would have been a normal, mentally healthy person who say, I'm non-binary. And it's like, well, no, you just want attention. If you actually thought you were non-binary, you would be severely mentally ill.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. The Trump campaign has just dropped a brand new advertisement, and it is the full 26 minutes. Can we pull this up? This is the full 26 minutes of the Kamala Harris interview with Brett Baer. That's literally it, and then it ends with, I think I got to refresh it here. X video.
That's hilarious.
The administration did and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things
There's more to say. I have much more to say,
there are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why we
I invite everyone to go to KamalaHarris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
and that's why we invited you here
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap here.
Well, I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She just doesn't respond to people.
Oh, that's it? I thought they were going to, I thought I thought I was going to say I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message.
She doesn't like take into account the fact that another person is speaking to her. She just keeps repeating the same talking points. Like she doesn't know how to have dialogue.
Well,
Is that strange to you?
No, I mean, not from her, but it's just interesting how she keeps plowing forward. She's sitting across from she's not at a rally with a bunch of people with a teleprompter. She's just sitting across from this guy, and he's talking to her, and she's continuing to talk over him with her speech.
But she went into this thinking it was a hostile interview. And so after, I mean, it wasn't even that long, 26 minutes or whatever. I'm not surprised at the end she's still trying to argue that, her plans are good and she has so much to say, because it's clear what he's doing. He's like, yeah, we invited you here to talk about your stuff, but you want to talk about Trump. She's trying to make up for lost time.
Yes. Who's going to win?
Wow.
Listen, I don't make predictions anymore. I think her campaign's very worried. But I can't call this one.
Trump's up in the polls. That's how the whole thing started, with Donald Trump up 2 points. A few months ago, or a month ago, he was down 2 points. Now he's up 2 points. Mm-hmm. Do polls matter, though?
This all rests on Michigan and Pennsylvania and how fair their election is going to be. I mean, just some of the stuff that came out today from the Government Accountability Project. There are 53 Michigan counties that have more than 100% voter registration, and that is from them not cleaning up their rolls. So when people die or people move away, they just don't delete the names. And we know double voting happens. I mean, it happened by the thousands in Florida in 2016. Michigan has hired Democrat poll watchers to Republican poll watchers in a 10-to-1 ratio, even though the state law requires a 1-to-1 ratio. They're not removing dead people. They're not removing illegal immigrants.
They're suing states that try to remove illegal.
They're suing states that try to clean up their voter rolls. Ohio's very red. They have a conservative Secretary of State who cleaned up the voter rolls, and Ohio found that hundreds of illegal immigrants had already voted, and thousands were registered to vote in Ohio. And so, the fact that they're not doing this in Michigan, all it takes is 10,000, 20,000 of these, and they can swing the election in both Michigan and Pennsylvania with as close as it is.
Well, the DOJ is now suing several states to stop them from trying to remove non-citizens from their voting rolls.
Yeah.
And that right there is just like a red flag.
Yep.
And then as a double red flag, the fact checkers came out and said, actually, that's false. They're not stopping them from doing that. They're just saying you can't purge voter rolls. And it's like, within 90 days. That's the argument.
Chicago is a great example. In Chicago and Cook County, they have not deleted anyone from their voter rolls due to death. No one has died in Chicago. According to the voter rolls, no one has died in Chicago for like 5 years.
And that's like the number one place where people die in this country.
Everyone dies in Chicago. Every weekend, thousands of people are getting shot.
No, you're wrong.
But they're all still voting. They're all still voting.
No one dies in Chicago. What are you talking about? And I know this because I see them vote every year.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like that joke where the place burns down and the guy's like, well, it's a good thing they got an insurance policy yesterday. And they're like, don't you find that odd? And he goes, what do you mean? It happens all the time. It's a Family Guy joke. So, yeah, like, what do you mean? Nobody dies in Chicago. Check the voter rolls. They vote every election.
Yeah, exactly.
And that means they're alive.
This guy was one of the first Democrats.
Yeah, he
voted for the Republican Party the entire time he was alive, and then
he was the first person to vote for the Republican Party back in 1861.
Exactly. Now he's endorsing Kamala Harris.
He switched parties.
Did you guys see that a judge in Georgia struck down the hand counting requirement for counties? So now that's out, which I find fascinating. Like, there are going to be all of these moments. And again, I referenced this earlier. Nebraska has this new ruling that was decided by a judge that actually felons are allowed to vote despite some back and forth between the legislature and the Secretary of State.
They're going to put drop boxes in the prisons, I heard.
Well, I mean,
are you joking?
I'm not joking. Like, that's not a Babylon Bee headline.
I was like, you work for the Babylon Bee, so I don't know if this is real or not.
Felons voting is weird because, like, Maine lets everyone vote, but not all states do. It's inconsistent, and it's decided by the states. But I think these, like, last-minute state level who can vote, how they're allowed to count stuff, may actually come into play during the 24 hours that we're waiting for the results, the 48 hours the week after.
Sure.
Because especially if judges are deciding them, 2 weeks out from the election, a week out from the election, that means do all counties know these things? Do all felons know they're allowed to vote now? Are they going to sue over the fact that they weren't given a ballot? I mean, these are issues that they're creating so it can be a disputed election for as long as possible.
Exactly. And so just to everyone listening to this, if you're getting excited looking at the polls showing that Trump is ahead or seeing that he's way ahead in the betting market, you need to get out there and you need to vote like every illegal alien and dead person in this country is voting.
I heard
ensure a victory even if they cheat.
I heard a funny joke that I can't remember who said this. Who were we talking to? They said there's a bunch of guys who are like, I'm not voting, I don't care. And then someone said, for every vote you cast, you cancel one woman's vote.
I said that as a joke the other day.
Oh, you said that?
Yeah, I said that to you as a joke. I was like, you cancel a woman's vote every time you vote.
Well, there you go. Say it. Then for all the people like, I don't want to vote. It's like, okay, well then, cancel out a vote of a woman or something.
I love JD's old idea. I don't know if this was JD's idea. It was accused to be his idea, but the idea that parents can get a vote for each of their kids.
I love that.
I
think that was
agree.
great.
I totally agree.
Until they turn 18.
Completely agree.
Parents,
if they're paying
families,
for the child themselves, if you're receiving government assistance,
They have to be married.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, have to be married.
Have to
All
be
right,
married.
boom. If you're I would
you have
agree.
more skin in the game. I mean, you should have more of a weight to your vote, I think. Absolutely.
Or how about you can't vote if you don't have kids?
I'd be fine with that too.
That'd be great.
Well, what are you voting on?
Yeah,
Like, we are voting for the
country.
future of this country, and it is not going to us. We are aging out. It's the young people who need to be taught, educated, and gifted the trees that we have planted so that they may bask under the beautiful shade. This is the crazy thing about everything that's going on. Nobody wants to plant trees anymore. We are a society of people who are harvesting the trees, ripping them down.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's saying, like, dude, are you going to plant the tree? It's like, you want me to do the work to plant a tree? I'm not going to get to sit in the shade. And then what? Someone else shows up and cuts it down? What do I get for that? That's where we're at.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's amazing how your mindset changes when you have kids. You know, it took me about like till kid 3 till my selfishness started to finally like leak away. But I'm at the point now where like everything I do is to make money that I never want to spend. You know, like everything I do is for them, to give them a future and what sometimes appears to be a dark future, to set them up as best I can. You know, and hopefully Kamala doesn't take away the inheritance tax or you know,
take away the inheritance tax
or institute an inheritance tax. I was going to say,
like, oh, hold on.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, they're always trying to do that, the 100% inheritance tax.
That's
disgusting. Well, and what, you know,
it's communism.
It is communism. It comes from a place of pure hatred. Again, they want to destroy the family. The reality is that inheritance taxes hurt the poor and middle class more than they hurt rich people. Poor people and middle class people inherit a larger percentage of their wealth than do rich people. So, for example, if someone is raised in a really rich family, in many cases, the reason that they're going to end up being so successful can sometimes be because of an inheritance. Oftentimes, it's just nepotism. It's just knowing the right people. It's your parents having certain connection. It's them being able to afford a good education for you. And that's great. People who are wealthy should do those things for their children. However, poor people, if they get ahead, it's usually because intergenerational wealth has built up in real estate, right? You were able to get a loan to buy a house, and then you were able to build up wealth for your family. Or farmers. This is another thing that people don't consider. I mean, inheritance taxes are really, really bad for farming families. And we don't talk about this enough. The left seems to just screw with the people who make the food everywhere they come to power. It's irresistible to them to cause food shortages. But what happens is farmers, they make a pretty normal yearly salary in many cases, but their equipment and the farm that they own is worth a lot of money. And so they need to pass that on to their children, not so their children can be living a spoiled, decadent life, but so that they can continue to farm. And what happens is when you have these inheritance taxes, they have to sell off a large portion of the farm. And look, they're selling that to some massive farming conglomerate or another family, which is increasing their wealth. And now they're out of the game.
Right. And I think wealthy people are able to afford advice on how to get out of any kind of inheritance tax. They are able to set up provisions or whatever they need to pass down money or to provide money to family members that, you know, it's just not accessible on the same level to poor or middle class people. And so, you know, it's like instituting a tax that you know you won't have to abide by, but will keep the people lower than you down on the ladder.
And that's what they want, especially for the immigrants coming in. They don't want any of these immigrants to be upwardly mobile. They don't want them to make it into the middle class or the upper class. They want them to be generationally and permanently dependent, drug addicted, welfare addicted, because that's what's most useful to them.
Well, they're making a caste system.
Yeah.
And when you bring in non-citizens and try and give them jobs, but you give them temporary status and work permits, what you're saying is you can do our menial tasks. You will never have a say in how this country operates. They want to create a servant class, a serf class, and an elite class that doesn't do work. They're going to automate out the jobs. And the idea is the wealthy American elites, does not include the working class, are going to have everything they want automated, and everyone else is going to fight over the lowest level jobs and live in the gutter. Welcome to their
what's with Democrats and slaves? They're always trying that.
Yeah, I know. You know. Well, let's grab this story here from the Daily Mail. Evil super gang seizes 4 apartment complexes in San Antonio.
Well, that's only a handful, Tim.
It is true. I think
What's a super gang? I like that. Sounds like something Trump would say. I kind of like that. Super gang.
They're a super gang. Very big. Not good.
It's like some horrible crossover between the X-Men and a gang.
It's a transnational gang.
Wow.
So remember when we were all like, oh, hey, geez, wow, they're taking over apartments in Aurora, and the media went, no, they're not. Now they've graduated to, but it's only a handful. Now we're up to, yes, but only a handful in a few cities. We are literally at the point where a foreign, invasive, violent faction has entered this country by force with guns and are occupying areas in New York City, San Antonio, Aurora, and I guarantee you many other cities we don't yet know about.
Yep.
Texas.
And guess what?
Jeez.
Anytime any of those stories get brought up, they're going to scoff at it too. They're not going to
say it's not true.
It's no big deal. And then, you know what?
It's only a handful in a few cities.
if and when that becomes the status quo, because Kamala Harris gets elected, naturalizes all the illegals in every swing state that she's placed, and then Democrats win every election forever, what's going to happen eventually is this will become commonplace, and they will say, there was never a time in American history where this didn't happen. This was always the norm. We just weren't talking about it. Whenever the left makes life worse for everyone or their policies completely fail and destroy our standard of living or decrease it, they go, well, that's always how it was. We've always had rolling blackouts, guys. Like, it's gonna be like, what do you mean? Oh, come on. Everyone used to have electricity. That was propaganda.
Fire and brimstone has always rained down from the heavens.
Exactly.
It's
always happened.
There's nothing we can do about it. None of our behavior should change. Let's just keep living the way we are.
We have kind of a preview looking at Europe. They're about 10 years further down the road than us. You know, you have all these kind of no-go zones for police where you have these enclaves of Islamic Sharia law where there's just no rule of law. There's no Western rule of law in those zones.
It's an invasion. It's a
absolutely.
literal invasion. You have people. If you've gotten to the point where police officers are no longer able to enforce the country's decided upon laws within a particular region, that region belongs to somebody else, right? That's insurrection. It is. If you want to talk about insurrection, that is sedition.
It's worse than January 6th, even.
Letting them come and do whatever they want.
If you allow people to take over a neighborhood and then your country's laws no longer apply to that particular region, they've effectively seceded. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Sedition. Mm-hmm. A seditious conspiracy, in fact.
Yeah.
Maybe they should get 20 years in prison.
No, that's never going to happen. They're not going to get in trouble. They should send them back, though.
You guys got to watch last night's episode with Rudyard Lynch. A lot of people are messaging saying it was one of the best episodes they've ever seen. And the members only was also one of the best members only we've ever done.
No pressure, Joel.
But I don't want to necessarily repeat things that were said because they were like up there. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at that. But I recommend you watch last night's episode. It got really heated around like about 40 minutes in when Rudyard started getting into history of falling dynasties, civil war, revolutions. And let's just say that he gave specific examples of various collapses of societies throughout history to what we see today. And then he made a rather extreme prediction, which is the most extreme prediction I've heard anyone give. And he's very convincing because he's like, I don't know, robotic almost. He's not animated or holding up a sign saying the end is nigh. He's simply saying like, well, what we saw with the French Revolution is the king trying to suspend Parliament refusing. And then overnight you get civil war, you get violence, you get riots. And it was a series of revolutions. In fact, it wasn't just one. He said.
And counter revolutions.
Right. It was
fighting back.
And then you got the empire. And then he said that he has a bet with a friend that the United States will see 1,000 political deaths domestically by April.
Wow.
And I'm thinking like, okay, I got optimism bias and normalcy bias. That's not going to happen.
Well, you know,
Mr. Civil War?
Yeah.
You don't think it's going to happen?
Yeah, because, and this was another point of the conversation. Mr. Civil War is, I read an article in a newspaper and then they said a civil war may be coming. Now, I don't know when or how that would happen, but I can't imagine a scenario that 1,000 people die. I mean,
yeah.
we certainly postulated and came up with potentialities of how it could happen. But I'm like, I don't know about that by April. And, he's a smart guy. And he laid out his arguments, and they're very convincing. Political crisis. He said, we're at a point in this country where it is obvious both sides do not care to convince each other. They care to only convince each other that they have plausible deniability to engage in whatever behavior they need to in order to take power. He also said he thought Trump is going to win the election, but that Democrats are going to reject it. This is going to lead to a political crisis, and then so on and so forth.
What was it? They had a couple of FBI whistleblowers on Capitol Hill a few weeks ago. I can't remember who these guys were or what they were whistleblowing about, kind of the corruption that's going on in the FBI. But at the end of the whistleblower's testimony, this FBI agent said, my advice to the American people right now is to buy guns and ammo and hunker down. And hearing that from an FBI whistleblower, it has a little more weight than just some random guy. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, what does he mean?
You know,
what's coming?
One of the most important things he said was that people have this thing in their mind where they believe it happens slowly. But every single instance has been a overnight thing. And he mentioned the Bolsheviks were about 3% of the country in Russia. Yep. And they took power. You do not need, and I've been banging my head on the table telling people this. They don't get it. Like Bill Maher, like there's not going to be. This was talk 4 years ago when Bill Maher was talking about civil war, saying, no, it's not going to happen. And people seem to think you need a Mason-Dixon line. See, people seem to think that you need two opposing state factions that align themselves. None of this is true. People seem to think, no, but you need like large populations. Never the case. That famous quote is, what is it, like, never let it be said that a small group of dedicated people can't change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. When you look at almost every revolution or civil war or conflict, it happens seemingly overnight, and it happens with a relatively small group of people. Granted, to be fair, the American Civil War did take a very, very long time.
And people don't realize how weird and bizarre the level of peace and prosperity we've enjoyed for the last 60 years is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is an anomaly. And it's just the last 20 years, it seems like a lot of groundwork has been set for hard times to come again. Not to be pessimistic or anything.
No,
But I don't think it's pessimism. I think it's just
realism, right?
yeah. We have lived in a golden age.
Yeah.
Where we have morbidly obese homeless people.
Yeah.
Like, this is incongruous with reality. It cannot be sustained. Morbidly obese homeless people. It seems to be paradoxical in a sense.
We've solved hunger. I was doing this research when I was looking into the free school lunch programs that Tim Walz is doing and some of these other governors are doing. And I wanted some figures on how many kids have died of starvation in the last 10, 20 years in the United States. The answer is zero. There have been no kids that have died from starvation, unless it was like an abusive.
But they are dying of heart attacks and stuff.
Right, yeah. Heart attacks, cancer, obesity, all that stuff. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean,
I'll tell you what.
Bobby, I'll tell you what. Well, no, I mean, we have in this particular country solved hunger. The issue is, people I hate to quote him, but as Jordan B. Peterson always says, they want to compare it to the hypothetical.
Now you have to do it in his voice.
It's like, man, people are trying to compare this country to the hypothetical utopia in their mind and not reality. That's why it's all falling apart, man. But
they're chimpanzees full of snakes.
when I was in college, I had a conversation with a woman. I remember I believe this is in 2015, and we were all out to dinner, and there was a shooting in France. Some Islamic extremists.
Is this the Bataclan?
I believe so. And I remember looking at my phone, reading the death toll, seeing that it had increased, and I was horrified. I was, upset about it. And she said, "You're only upset because it's happening in a first world country." And I said, "Correct, because the entire world has been dangerous for all of history. And over the last 100 years, we've created small, isolated pockets where people can be safe and they don't have to worry about being killed in their day-to-day lives. And when those parts of the world become less safe, the third world doesn't become more safe. The whole world just gets less safe."
That's a good point.
Yeah. So basically, you admitted you were a bigot?
Yeah, exactly. It's bigoted to be concerned about the fact that the first world is becoming less safe and people are more likely to be murdered by radical Islamic extremists. That is bigotry. That's fascism.
War and conflict is the norm for Earth.
Yeah.
And we have had this, I guess 2 generations of prosperity. 3 now. Mm-hmm. I guess it's Gen X. Man, I got to give a shout out again to Dickie Bear, because I was saying this the other day on my morning show. I was talking to Dickie. He's the lead singer of Mighty Mighty Bosstones. They broke up over his rejection of vaccine mandates, among other things. But that was basically it. So, he wrote the song "The Impression That I Get." You guys remember that song, right? Mm-hmm. He has this great line in it. I was talking to him about how I wish I introduced them on stage at Rescue the Republic, because I had this whole thing where I said, there's a line in the song, "I'm not a coward, I've just never been tested. I'd like to think that if I was, I would pass. See all the tested and think there, but for the grace go I. I'm not a coward, but I'm afraid of what I might find out." And as the story goes, I'll give you the simple version of the speech. When Dickie was working for ABC, he was the announcer for Jimmy Kimmel. They vaccine mandated their employees. And he said, "This makes no sense. If I work remote, I'm not in studio, why do I have to do this?" So I refuse. He got fired. A very high-paying, high-profile job. He refused to back down. And I told him, I said, "Bro, you were tested and you passed," right? He wrote the song 30 years ago, and he was saying he didn't know if he was a coward or not, but it turns out he was not. And then he told me he wrote that song because his generation had no great conflict. Like, the people who came before him had Vietnam. And he was thinking to himself that, like, we grew up in this time where we didn't go fight. We didn't go to war. We just had it all. And so he was like, here I am, it's the 90s. And I'm thinking like, knock on wood that something like this happens to me. I've not had to deal with that. And I don't know how I would act if something like that actually did happen. So Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Z, no conflict. Turmoil a little bit here and there, but that's not conflict.
And I think we've been programmed too, or at least our generation, to feel guilty for the amount of prosperity that we've had. You know, there's that. I remember Louis C.K. was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how it's weird that we have it so good here. That's not right.
Yeah,
we have it so good here. It shouldn't be that way. You know, there's
it's all woven with guilt. I mean, even Seamus's anecdote. This girl is trying to sort of holier than thou respond to as if you are in the wrong for feeling sad that people are affected by a shooting or something horrible in France. Well, but you should feel even worse because actually you don't feel guilty enough about the things that happen to people in places that are even more dangerous. I mean, it's a logic that is built on sort of self-flagellation always.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the
No
kinds
action,
of people.
notably.
These are the kinds of people like, don't you know that the last shoebill sandpiper is having its habitat destroyed for capital? And
But they're not going to
who
change.
cares if people die? You only care because they're in the first world.
Right. They're also
They are
not
stepping
doing
on the turtle eggs.
Yeah.
They're also not doing anything to preserve the rare whatever. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like they want you to feel bad because they know about this thing, but have they donated to a cause? Have they built the correct habitat? Like, no.
Exactly.
Honest question, like what is it about people that they hate humans so much? So
They hate their fathers in a lot of instances.
we did this show a couple years ago with the Daily Wire. Jeremy
God.
Boring was on the show, and he made a really great point that, or no, this was here actually at our old studio. And Jeremy, he's a co-CEO Daily Wire. He was talking about how we do everything for humans. We don't do anything not for humans. It is, and he didn't say it like this, but his point was, it is the human experience for which we are in pursuit of everything. If there are no humans, and he said, obviously we want to be good stewards of the earth. We want to take care of it and all of God's creation, but we do everything for other people. So, and he's completely right. Our motivations are social.
Or ourselves.
Right. But it's human. It's humanity. I think that's particularly interesting. If there's no humans, then who cares?
Well, yeah, I mean, the kind of self-congratulatory sentimentalism that they indulge in and shed a tear and pat themselves in the back for how virtuous they are because they care about the, 1,000 remaining Kenyan Harolas is also a human experience, ironically. So they'll say, oh, I really care about this particular thing that's happening somewhere in the world, and they won't do anything about it, but they'll care about it, and they'll feel good about themselves.
In the abstract.
Yeah, or it's true. Then they care about certain animals in the abstract. But you're absolutely correct. Ultimately, it's really easy to care about humans as an abstract because the abstract idea of humanity doesn't ask anything of you. The abstract idea of humanity, here's a fact. It's actually just you. Like, whenever you say you love humanity and you're only talking about humanity in the abstract, what you're saying is you love yourself. Because these people never do anything for other people in the particular. They only talk about humanity as a whole because that doesn't demand anything of you. It allows you to continue to behave selfishly. And again, you get to pat yourself on the back with the self-congratulatory moralist sentimentalism.
We didn't get into
It's narcissism.
the story, but the FBI crime data.
Oh my gosh.
They revised it. It's up 4.5%, not down. They lied.
Yeah, of course.
But Merrick Garland praised himself.
Can I ask?
Kamala Harris praised their administration for reducing crime, and then without saying anything to anybody. So just mentioning that before we go to Super Chats, because the White House pats themselves on the back for their good job while flipping the numbers, and then later quietly updates them, and they did a bad job.
Can I ask something about that, Tim? I'm not sure what kind of information they would need to find behind the scenes or what kind of investigation would be needed. But if the FBI is intentionally altering crime data to make it seem like the country is safer than it actually is during an election year, is that not election interference?
It is.
100%.
How about saying that a laptop was Russian disinformation?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Mayo. We're going to go to Super Chats. So smash the like button, subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a particularly spicy members-only show that's going to be coming up, and, probably going to get in trouble, but,
You're going to get in trouble. I'm going to be on my best behavior. If you guys want to see me on my best behavior, tune into the after show. I'm not doing anything wrong. The rest of them will.
Go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because your membership sustains us. And we would greatly appreciate it. It really does. It helps make this show operate. It's how we are all here. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Share the show. Smash the like button. Let's read what you guys have to say. All right. Nico Barney says, Michael Malice's ableist quote ringing true every time she speaks.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was on the Piers show, like he showed the clip. One of the first things he showed was Michael Malice talking to Joe Rogan, and Joe just busting a gut laughing when Michael Malice is like, well, she's mentally disabled, you know? He's like, what? And he's like, Ukraine is a small country and Russia is a big country. And then Joe just loses it. That was so great. And that's why my X profile says CEO of Timcast and host of Timcast IRL and friends with Michael Malice.
Is that actually what it says? I don't get a shout out in the Twitter bio, and no, Michael Malice does?
It's because somebody tweeted blocked by Michael Malice. And then Michael made a point or like made a comment. Someone made a comment about the people who are proud, like their life's work that you blocked them or something.
It's so dorky. It's
so
embarrassing.
Then I responded with like, what if I put that I was friends with you? And then we had like a joking back and forth. So then I added to my bio, friends with Michael Malice, screenshot it and send it to him.
That's great.
We very much like Michael Malice. He's a very, very funny guy. Sean H says, Tim, did you hear about the $425 million Biden just announced going to Ukraine? I did. I have friends in Florida still awaiting responses from FEMA from Helene damage to their home. Why don't they care about us? Well, because you're not Ukrainian. I mean, you think you deserve that money?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Who do you think you
Selfish?
are? Know your place.
How's that going to fund the war machine to send you aid? I mean, come on, get with it, folks.
Yeah. What about the Ukrainian? Have you stopped to think about these poor Ukrainian shell companies that need to funnel the money illegally into their bank accounts so they could buy luxuries? Come on. You got to think. All right. Nick says, Tim, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is significantly better than Magic. That is a joke. It's a joke. All right. We'll grab some more. Schlip says, hey, Tim, you posted a video on X the other day of that rainbow, and I have to ask, is that where Seamus was hiding your spoons? Did you see the video I sent you, Seamus?
That's offensive. I replied on Twitter. Yeah, I replied. I saw that. I was actually laughing really hard. I'll be honest. I'm not going to play it straight. When you said that, I was like, are you kidding me, dude? That's not okay.
There was a double rainbow outside.
It warms my heart to see Irish jokes being brought back. It really does.
We've had it too good for too long. Yeah, the Irish.
it's
Someone should really take them down a peg.
They're not everyone's
They've
target.
had so much success. Let's punch up at the Irish.
But it was a double rainbow. Did you notice, too, that it was in front of the tree?
2 pots of gold.
If you look at the video, you can see the rainbow actually goes in front of the tree. That was the crazy thing.
It was funny because I was talking about this with, actually, I don't know if I can even say this on air or if we'll get in trouble.
We'll say it for the member
We
show.
were joking about it on air. I can't remember if it was on the after show.
I don't trust you.
Okay, fine. We'll talk about the after show.
I'm just going to say something naughty.
No.
All right. Here we go. Let's see. Peter Gowak says, Tim, you got to look into this Tim Waltz story. It's being reported that he took students to concerts, and one man is accusing that he raped him when he was 14. I don't believe it for a second. Yeah, sorry. That sounds like October surprise nonsense with no evidence. But if a real story comes out with evidence and corroborating witnesses, I'll consider it. But I don't. Yeah, these stories are weird. Let's go. Hold My Beer says, I'm 20 years old and I'm USCG. What are your thoughts on mail-in ballots for military members far from home, voted for the first time via ballot? Yes, 100%. That's the purpose of mail-in ballots. It was always originally about helping military servicemen and women who are away to be able to vote. Yep. Everybody else should show up on election day and vote. No election month, no mail-in riffraff, none of that. Makes no sense.
Well, now the overseas votes, the civilian overseas votes vastly outnumber military.
I saw you.
It doubled in 2016.
I believe you posted about this on Twitter. You had a pretty informative thread about how easy it is for people to just get those ballots.
Yeah, you can sign up, you can register. You don't have to provide any proof of citizenship or address. It's state dependent of how deeply they want to vet you. But if you're trying to vote in a blue state, chances are they're not going to vet you very hard, and you can send your ballot via email. You don't even have to mail it anymore.
And there's a specific get out the vote among expat movement led by the Democrats.
Yep, the DNC has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on harvesting overseas ballots from quote unquote civilians. Yep.
They're really trying to fortify this election.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Every vote counts.
I just saw that a bunch of billboards in Chicago were hacked. And they say F Israel with Mr. Beast screaming, and there's a Palestinian flag that says paid for by Mr. Beast.
Oh no.
Yeah, should I pull this up?
That's so funny. Are you going to get in trouble for showing it? You showed me. I didn't know that was real. Yeah, Serge showed it to me, and I was laughing because I thought it was a meme. I didn't realize someone actually did that.
Here we go.
Oh, my goodness.
Why would somebody do that?
Oh, I love that they included that thumbnail shot of him with his mouth open.
Exactly.
And then, like Times New Roman at the bottom, Mr. Beast LLC.
Yo, that is wild. And
Dude, that's really funny.
I'm pretty sure whoever did it doesn't actually care about Israel.
Yeah, it just seems like a joke to me.
Right, because if they did, they wouldn't have put Mr. Beast on it because that makes it funny.
It makes it like a bit. It makes it like
How
a
many
joke.
billboards did they do this to?
I don't know.
Just the
but-
one?
So it's an out front billboard, and I can assure you it was a hack because out front is reps our billboards that we've purchased in Chicago and in Times Square. And I tried getting a billboard in Times Square that said, this was back before Elon bought X. I said, I want to get a billboard that says Twitter protects pedophiles. And they were like, we don't think the landlords are going to allow that, but we'll ask them. And I was like, I'll pay. Like, let me know how much it's going to cost. Because this was the big scandal was that Twitter would not take down these accounts from people who were trafficking children. And they came back and they were like, yep, said, sorry, it's not going to fly. Nobody wants to take that ad. And then I said, okay, what about like Twitter protects child abuse? They're like, bro, it's not going to happen. And I was like, all right, man, I tried.
That's
Mr. Beast gets away with this.
That's what, if I ever lose my job and get fired from the Babylon Bee, I want to become a full-time billboard hacker. I think that would be a really gratifying career.
That would be a great career.
That would be so
Yeah,
fun.
but now
Not that I recommend that because that's illegal.
if you leave the Babylon Bee now, I know everyone's gonna look to you every time there's a hack.
Yeah, I've just admitted it on. Oh,
right
no.
now.
Wouldn't it be funny if it's just like an HDMI cable was like plugged into a computer and then he ran off and that was it?
Just took a remote and changed the channel.
Has
Well, that's
Mr.
true,
Beast
though.
had to respond to this yet? Is he gonna have to release a statement?
So I don't know if they still do this anymore. They probably don't, but they used to have satellite-controlled billboards. And so that's one way that they were getting hacked. But this is likely just probably local internet. That's cheaper and easy.
I don't see that he's responded to it on Twitter.
Maybe
does
he
one
did.
address
Can we rule out that he did it?
The soy mouth.
Can we rule out whether he did it as journalists? We're all
Actually-
journalists here.
This is a fair point. The least amount of assumption. So Occam's razor suggests that in the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct, and that is Mr. Beast bought the billboards.
What if Mr. Beast was planning on getting billboards like that, and then someone just did that first as a joke? He's like, "Oh, great, I don't have to pay for it anymore."
I can picture a scenario where he like lost a bet on one of his videos. Like, if you lose this contest, you have to put this billboard up.
Oh
man, okay.
Has to come out and be like, it was a social experiment.
I just want to say it again because the simple solution is like we actually are trying to jump through hoops to justify that it was hacked. We have no evidence that's true. All we see is a billboard that claims to have been paid for by Mr. Beast.
All we have is Mr. Beast wouldn't do that.
I think we
Exactly.
know.
But I don't know Mr. Beast. I don't know
to
him.
believe all billboards is what we need to do.
I don't know that he would do that or not.
All right. Radioactive Rat says, I'm a female from California. I refuse to vote for a woman president. I don't care what race she is. Does that make me sexist against my own gender? You were always allowed. That's always allowed. There you go.
But
Vote your
feminists
conscience.
will say that you are self-hating. Just to put that one out there.
All right. John W. Kristen says, Rudyard was awesome. Please do a culture war with Rudyard and Stephen Marsh on Civil War. That would be really good, actually. I am going to actually message right now and say that's absolutely what we should do. Because I like Stephen Marsh, but he's a liberal. And so he can see the conflict arising, but he comes from the right is wrong and the right is making civil war and the left is good. And I'm like, okay, well, like both sides have responsibilities in these things, whether you think they're right or wrong. He's like, nope. So actually, that would be really cool. Let me, let's see, send a message. Let's do Stephen Marsh and Rudyard Lynch. Let's get it. That'd be based.
Beast.
All right, what do we have here? We will, what's going on? Kieran the Meat Man says, hey, Tim, can I get a shout out for Biltong Baron? We are matching purchase of Biltong through Sun on our website or Public Square with donations to the hurricane victims. We're at a few hundred at the moment and need more. Oh, that's based. Very based. Let's go. Landon Weber says, where do I get that Babylon hat Joel is wearing? It's fire.
You can get it on our website. We have a little store. You can buy T-shirts, hats. You can buy our book, and we've even talked about putting our movie out on DVD. we assume some people still buy DVDs.
Have you considered putting them on DVDs and then like standing on street corners and selling them for $5?
No. Giving them to people, and then when they take it, go, that's $5.
What I really want is to put it on VHS because I just think that would be funny and people would buy it as a gag gift. Yeah.
No, you can, honestly, I would do something like that. Like get a couple VHSs and then someone who like gives a certain amount. You just have a limited edition VHS set of the film. Yeah, that would be super funny.
I'd totally buy that. Yeah. Yeah, you can get it on our website.
DT Trucker says, Tim, Garbage Man here. Part of my daily route is listening to you guys. Love it. I'd love to see YouTuber Peter Santinello on the show. Check him out. Do you guys know him?
Not familiar.
Oh, you do? Serge says, is he based?
Serge knows everybody.
Is he based?
Is he based, Serge?
He says, yes, I think so. Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. We like based. You know, we don't like cringe. Okay.
We like people who are based.
Let's grab some more super chats. What do we have here? Kamala, let's see. Here we go. Coyle says, Seamus, I love Lil Kamala 2.0. Please do a cartoon about all the ways Joe Biden's son died. Jeez.
Wait, what happened?
Oh, I get it. A cartoon about all the ways Joe Biden's son's died because he keeps telling different stories about how he lost his son.
Oh man, we did listen the Kamala one. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed the Kamala one, and we have one coming out tomorrow, which I think pokes an appropriate level of fun at her recent behavior on the campaign trail. Let's just say Kamala's not out of the race. She has a tool up her sleeve for achieving victory. You guys will get to see all about it in tomorrow's cartoon. YouTube.com/freedom to subscribe. We're almost to 1 million. We're at like 970,000.
Let's get Freedom Tunes to 1 million tonight.
Let's do it tonight. Get Freedom Tunes.
Do you have freedomtunes.com?
I do, yeah.
But it doesn't go to the YouTube, does it? It goes to your website.
It goes to my website.
All right, so Freedom Tunes on YouTube. Hit subscribe. There's more than enough people watching right now to get Freedom Tunes to 1 million subscribers.
But
I got to be honest, they're probably all subscribed already.
No. Not
all right, here we go.
I've been away from the show for a while. 972. Come on, baby.
Here we go. Dark Wolf says, my headcanon is that Seamus is the cat and that Phil is the wizard that transforms him into and out of being the cat. As for all the missing spoons, Phil needs them to every time he casts the spell.
We don't believe in witchcraft here.
You have to bring Phil a spoon to become a human.
We don't believe in that here.
Sounds like an Irish trick.
Yeah, old Celtic magic.
We have our druid space taters. lots of tricks up our sleeves.
Let's see. We will grab some more super chats. Let's see what's going on here. What is this? Noah Body says, Joy Reid literally just described communism. No. The children are for the state.
Well, the thing is, like, if any society wants a future, they do need to have children. I guess if your society is, like, oriented around the state, if you have a fascist or communist society like that, then I guess that's how you would phrase it. But, like, normal people just want to have families. They want to continue the human species.
The line says, Andy Kaufman, Tim, that's the actor. You are correct. I was wrong. I don't know why I thought Jim Belushi. It's Andy Kaufman.
From what?
They said Josh Sider is like a new Andy Kaufman.
Ah.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Dean says, if I buy Step on Snackboard, will HCB autograph it?
Sure. You'd have to find me in the wild, or I don't. Do they produce them? Do they ship them from here?
We have early print. I call them alpha edition boards that are not for sale on the website.
It's beautiful.
And we have a couple thousand of them. Like that one is an alpha board. It was literally the first boards we designed with the graphic. The graphics have been redesigned, so now the beta run is available. The skateboards are in beta mode. So if you were to buy the board on the website, we don't have them here. They get sent by our distributor. However, we do have a bunch of the boards here that could possibly be obtained. I think maybe the easiest way to do it is if you're a member of the Discord, the boonieshq.com Discord, which is a totally separate thing from this. You have direct access to the Boonies crew, and then we could probably arrange something where we could send you like a discount board with autographs on it. It'll take longer to do, obviously, than just ordering online, but you'll get autographs. And we're totally down to do that when we can. But if you're a member, supporting Boonies HQ. Skate show, fun stuff. We've got Cody Mack is back. If you guys skate and you just watch that Cody Mack field day from Boonies HQ, my brain can't compute the skill this guy has. I don't have words. I'm speechless. Watch that video if you're a skateboarder and you're going to be like, this is not real life. That's how good he is, and he's coming back. We're really excited. Going to film some tricks. Let's grab some more Super Chats. What have we here? Ryan Sargent says, I strongly believe having children, especially when you aren't ready, turns you into a better person. It did for me. A lot of stories like that.
I agree.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Seamus came back to IRL on a different level.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you think so. I hope it's a better level. I hope I didn't go down a few
You didn't
floors.
say that.
Just a different level. Said a different level, I guess. So it's pretty ambiguous.
Let's go. What have we here? There's what is this one? Joy Reid. Wouldn't come up. Interesting. What have we now? Andre C says, panel, if America was invaded, do you think Gen Z could be mobilized to fight by the regime? Why and why not? I see a mass exodus of young men to other countries if money remains world reserve, dollar remains world reserve. We sold them out for boomer votes. Gen Z would not mobilize to defend this country. I don't even think by force. Yeah. You've got half of the Gen Z being like, no way, the machine state, screw you. And the other half being like, this country sucks. So who's going to mobilize to fight for the machine?
Well, we kind of saw it in the 60s, didn't we? With the Vietnam War and, hippies being drafted.
Yeah.
It would depend. Did he say if we were invaded, would the Zoomers fight? Or did he say if we were invaded?
Could we mobilize them?
If we were being invaded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know about like the Zoomers as a group. I think when you have an invasive force in the country with the highest instance of firearm ownerships and more guns than people, there's going to be some formidable opposition there. How many of those people are going to be from Gen Z? I don't know.
Sterling Wilson III says, yo, did I miss something? Shimcast rocking a wedding band. Congrats, Brusky.
Thank you.
Oh, people noticed.
What? I was trying to hide it.
Were you really?
No. I'm wearing the ring. I don't talk about my personal life on air for the safety of myself and those I love.
Indeed. That's a good point. I will heed that. Kevin Taylor says Tom McDonald got his #1 billboard plaque signed by Trump at the Coachella rally. Pretty boss of Trump to do that. That's based. Kate says, Tim, couldn't your guest yesterday have meant 1,000 political deaths being equivalent to 1,000 voices silenced? What is the J6? No, he quite literally said there will be blood. And he said that he thinks 1,000 will die and he has a bet $1,000 for 1,000 deaths by April. He may just be a little crazy. That's it. But he's suggesting that the conflict will escalate dramatically after the election. And by April, there will be insurgent conflict across the country to some degree. Yep. I hope not. I mean, can't we just, I ordered pizza and wings today. Allison's been out visiting family. So literally every day this week has been pizza and wings. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
That's how you have to survive. Yeah.
That's it's tough. This is what men do. We figure it out. Everyone else is happy because there's pizza and wings.
Make sure you have your My Patriot Supply food buckets.
for when your girlfriends go out of town.
All right. Hal Gailey says, Cody will leave you speechless like the New York Times bestselling book by Michael Knowles. That was probably the best ad campaign anyone's ever done. When Michael Knowles turned his book into his book sale pitch into a meme, and people would super chat into the show, specifically like, Tim, that story was wild about that dog. It's left me speechless, just like the book from Michael Knowles, New York Times bestseller. And then it ended up spiking, and it kept selling every time that happened.
Brilliant.
You know what was an even better ad campaign? When we said, everyone go on over and subscribe to Freedom Tunes because they're almost to 1 million subscribers.
Where are you
can
at?
be a part of this tonight. 972,264.
How many have you gained in the past few minutes?
Couple zero. Everyone's. I actually lost subscribers. People came over and unsubscribed. No, I've gained a couple hundred. I think I was when I checked. I've gained a couple hundred since I checked, but that's not been since you first mentioned it. So I don't know how many since you first mentioned it.
I don't know how to say this, but I was at the doctor earlier, and he told me that if Seamus doesn't get to 1 million subscribers by 10 o'clock, that my heart will give out. And
Tim's heart will. Now everyone's
Timcast IRL will be over.
Save Tim.
Situation. What's happening?
So it's just it is what it is. It's God calling me, and if Seamus doesn't get to 1 million subscribers, then it's just it was nice knowing you.
Do it for Tim. Do it for Tim to keep this show alive.
I gotta say, Seamus, it's weird being next to you. I've watched and enjoyed your channel for so long, but when I turn my head, it's just I'm hearing Freedom Tunes. Your voice has become so iconic. It's
Thank you,
cool.
man.
We got a question here. Amtrue13 says, "How is the suit against Kamala HQ going?" Curious. So we have filed a lawsuit against the Kamala Harris campaign, and it is going typically. There's that's about it. Where we filed. It is public and available for people to read. And we are in the advancing stages. Lawsuits take a long time. So I will have more updates for you shortly because we're also suing West Virginia. Suing West Virginia because they have they don't enforce child gambling. Yeah. It's illegal for children to place wagers on card games. And yet Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering are rampant across the state. So either they got to ban Pokemon or unban Texas Hold'em.
Ooh.
Yep. And it was actually lawmakers here who told me that I should probably sue if that's the case, and it's the fastest way to getting enforcement action.
Dude, people are going to be so mad at you if you just get Pokemon banned.
There's no way West Virginia will ban Pokemon.
You don't think so?
Absolutely not.
I don't know.
It's the end of the political career of any politician in West Virginia who says they're banning Pokemon and Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh.
It's bigger than people realize.
Nintendo is going to join the fray. Nintendo, like, they're going to come in and be like, we're not going to have a precedent set in a state that this is gambling.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get a call from a Nintendo lawyer being like, we'd like to join your suit.
Ooh. Yeah. It could work.
Yeah, I really doubt they'll actually call, but, we'll see. Trey Wooble says, Democrats lie about a lot of things. However, I have never heard them claim that Seamus talked to a girl in college should be better.
That's brutal, man. Why you got to do that?
That was a
Why
good
you gotta
one.
come at me like that? Listen, he's right. I made the whole story up. It never happened.
I got one.
Never happened. They identified as a woman, though.
You overheard this conversation between two girls.
You ready? Democrats lie about a lot of things. However, I have never heard them claim that Seamus has 1 million subscribers on his Freedom Tunes channel.
Ooh, let's go over there. Let's see if that's true. Let's subscribe.
Well, that means the Democrats aren't liars.
Yeah, that would mean
if you have less than 1 million subscribers, that means they told the truth.
And that means that you have to trust the mainstream.
You gotta vote
press if
Kamala.
I don't get to 1 million subscribers.
If he doesn't have 1 million subscribers by tonight, you got to vote Kamala.
Don't go that far. Don't do that. Go subscribe.
Did
all
you
right,
gain
we're
like
getting
10
closer.
more subscribers?
900. We're almost to 973,000. We're getting real close.
I don't know.
But we need to be to 1 million.
I don't know, man. I think everyone's already a subscriber, to be completely honest.
No, not everybody. That's true. You did get all your fans from me. You started voicing Dr. Fauci, and people said, where did this voice come from?
Brandon H. says, China military drills happening now. Taiwan is completely surrounded. Whoa. Let's see. Patras says, if you see this, you registered to vote early. Oh, I have. Not only am I registered, I double checked, and then, so I refiled to make sure. Then I checked the online filing to make sure everything was up to date and right, and I'm good. So this is no way, dude. And
I double checked for myself too. I was like,
I'm not a heavily motivated voter. I mean, like, I voted for Obama in 2008, then I voted for Trump in 2020. And that's where I am.
Not in 2016?
Nope.
Wow.
No, I didn't like him. Wow. I thought he was a funny guy, but I was just like, I'm not playing this game again. Obama was like, hope and change. And I was like, yes, sir. And then he was like, no, I'm going to bomb kids. Too many of them. Got to blow them up. And I said, okay, well, I wish I didn't vote for that guy, because then I could have at least said I didn't vote for him, but I did. And then he blew up a bunch of kids, and I feel bad about it. 2016 came around, and I was like, this is nuts. It was Hillary and Trump, and then 2020 came around, and I was like, well, Trump did do no wars. That's
pretty nice of him.
I know, right?
Did us a solid there.
I liked that.
It was based, John Curry says, Tim, put on the heat. Seamus is in a Parker. Hannah Claire's in a flannel. Joel's in a flannel. Don't be so cheap. You're in a beanie. Heat, Tim, heat.
We're actually all sweating, and we wanted to make Tim look bad.
I have a fan on me.
I mean, you're not like wearing that. You have a beanie on. You're not wearing that many more layers than us. Your shirt is like a thick material. But
we're both wearing rolled. Oh, but your shirt's buttoned. Mine's not.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not that like. We're okay, I promise.
Why do I?
Yeah, no, it's warm in here. It's fine.
Isn't it
Seamus
crazy?
is a coward, but other than
men.
Would you go that hard? Oh my gosh.
Men, join me. Is it not crazy that you have to explain to women why the air conditioning needs to be on? I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation where a woman will come and be like, it's so cold in here. Can we turn the air conditioning down? And I'm like, no, because I can't take my skin off, but you can put a sweater on.
Exactly.
I would happily trade. I would grab a hoodie and put it on, and I'd feel totally comfortable. But it is hot, and I can't take my shirt off on the show.
Well, Tim,
so the air conditioning goes to 40 degrees.
That super chatter called me. I've never talked to a woman before, so I've never had this conversation. I've never talked to a woman.
That ring is an abstinence ring.
It's actually it's actually to scare women away from talking to me, so that I won't ever have to interact with them. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Talk to the hand.
We've literally talked before.
No,
either he's saying I'm a man, at which point I'm deeply insulted.
All right. Ralph Misk says, Tim, DOD Directive 52440 was just passed that allows the use of lethal force against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. Guns and Gadgets did a video on it, and there's a link to the actual directive. Also, Armed Scholar just did a video. I heard about this. I don't know a lot about it, though. That's crazy.
They didn't have that authority already?
I mean, for military, I guess. I don't know. Epic Flounder says they're talking about rogue armed militias in North Carolina. The government could fire on citizens and say it was self-defense, and we would never know if it's true. The story feels like they're laying the groundwork. Heavens me, I just don't know. Indeed, indeed.
Yep.
It is a terrifying reality, I suppose.
All I'm going to say is this, too. Like, if things do end up getting ugly, some people have made some predictions that they will. I think that the government knows that if they want to get the military on their side and fighting civilians, one of the most effective ways to do that is a false flag. So if people start telling you that civilians are trying to hurt members of the military or shooting at them, be very skeptical. Do a lot of research on that. Because I've spoken to people in the military about this. And I've asked them, do you think if there was some kind of armed conflict in this country between the people and the government, would the military fight against the American people? And he said only if the American people attacked first. So if there's some kind of false flag, that could trigger it. So
we will see.
Yeah.
My friends, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash the like button, subscribe to the show, share it with everyone you know. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a good review. 5 stars. Say, this is the best show. Everyone agrees. At least that's what I've been told. And head over to timcast.com because that members only show is coming up, and I'm going to be as offensive as I can because I will hold no bars. So once again, smash the like button and share the show. Joel, do you want to shout anything out?
Again, just want to say you can check out the Babylon Bee's very first movie. It's for subscribers to the Babylon Bee only. It's called January 6th, The Most Deadliest Day. And I think it's pretty fun. I think you'll enjoy it. It's watchable. Critics say it's watchable and it's above average. So
Beautiful.
Check it out. Yeah.
And don't forget to subscribe to Freedom Tunes on YouTube.
Because we're almost up to 1 million subscribers, and I need a hairbrush. And if you want me to be able to afford one, you need to get us to 1 million subscribers. Another way you can help, go over to freedomtunes.com and become a member. We've got 50 to 100 behind-the-scenes cartoons that only donors can see. These are cartoons that we made that are only available behind the paywall. We also put out a podcast every week discussing the making of each episode that we do. So go over there, become a member, and also, if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, subscribe. Help us get to 1 million so I can buy a hairbrush.
I think you should unsubscribe from Freedom Tunes.
Why? What's wrong? Why would you say that?
You guys have done enough.
Why would you
Seamus.
say that?
He just
Stop.
He's flaky.
Tim, can you cut her mic? Can someone turn her microphone down?
You know, it's a whole thing.
We don't want you brushing your hair either. That's like that's your look at
it's
this point.
iconic. It's true.
Yeah.
Once you get to 1 million followers, will you even come back? Will you ever do IRL again? I don't think so.
Not now.
That's
not anymore.
Well, look, team, if you're too big for us, no, I'm just kidding. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. You can find me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at hannahclaireb. Thanks for everything you guys do. Have a good night.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute. Thanks for hanging out.